Welcome to Man in America. I'm your host, Seth Holhouse. So I've got a really special and fun show for you today. I'm dressed a little differently. I got my headphones on. So I've got for you actually over 3 hour interview with a guy named Dave Weiss. Now, I want to give a little bit of a preface for today's show. So something that I've learned in my journey for seeking the truth is that I need to question just about everything. And that typically whenever there's a topic that's heavily censored, heavily demonized, that the mainstream voices, the people in the white lab coats, that they immediately shut down, I've learned that that's oftentimes an indicator of them saying, no, don't look here, look over here. And they want us to look at something else. Now, one of those topics, funny enough, is the idea of, is the earth round or is the earth flat? And honestly, whenever I in the past had heard of anybody saying the earth was flat, I immediately thought, you're a whack job. There's no way. That's like, look, I'll believe that there's this secret cabal controlling, there's depopulation agenda, but that is like a whole other level of stupid. That was my thoughts about it. Now, is it because I was a physicist, or because I already knew this exactly a certain way, or because I had studied it extensively and disproved that theory? No, actually, that was my response because I had always been taught otherwise since I was first learning. I mean, that's especially for, how I grew up. That's one of the first lessons you learn in science class is the planets and the round stuff and all that. And so I really had written it off, but occasionally though, I would see people asking about it in the comments or during live shows or, whatnot. But I also talked to some really good friends of mine that are actually really, really intelligent people. And so other folks I follow that they also were sharing information about this. And then the catalyst was I saw an interview. So Dave Weiss, who's also known as Flat Earth Dave, my guest today, he did also a 3 hour long interview with David Whited over on Flyover Conservatives. And David's also a really good friend of mine. I have a lot of respect for him. And I thought, that's interesting. And so I watched the interview, and again, 3 hours. And there was just so much in it that made me question a lot. And I thought it was just such an interesting conversation because it's kind of like, okay, if a smart person can actually believe that, what is the evidence they have? How did they come to that conclusion? So anyways, I thought, well, maybe I should have Dave on my show. And I'll tell you that, look, in all honesty, I am not sure what the shape of the earth is. Would I say that I'm a flat earther? No, I'm not, right? But would I say that based on a lot of this information that, through Dave or also a lot of the other research I've done recently, that the idea of the globe model has some strong flaws? Yeah, there's a lot of information that makes me think that maybe that's not exactly what we think it is, basically, that maybe that's the kind of thing that we've been lied to. So again, I'm not any which way. And again, the point of this interview was not to come and try to convince you of something or to prove a point. It was really just to ask a question and say, well, okay, is there any validity to this? And let's explore it. Like, did NASA go to the moon? Have we ever seen a real picture of Earth? Looking at the flight paths, there's just a lot of just really interesting information. So and also, I'll be doing more interviews like this. Obviously, I have my main show. It's serious. We're going to be really kind of continue to focus on it, interviewing folks like Martin Armstrong or those kinds of people. But what I want to do, and I haven't done it yet, but I'd like to actually create more of a subset where I'm just exploring these interesting topics, not necessarily saying, hey, this is the truth, but just asking the questions. Because honestly, if we can't question what we believe to be true, we're very susceptible to being locked into lies. And I'm sure that for you over the past, say, 3 years or 5 years or 10 years, you've come to realize that a lot of the things that you used to believe about the world are actually not just false, but they're lies, and that they're the exact opposite of what they want us to believe. So I hope that you can come into this with an open mind. And let me know what you think in the comments. If you think, Seth, you're a nutty whack job, well, you probably didn't watch the introduction, because I'm saying that I believe in all this stuff. I'm just saying that, look, this brings up a lot of interesting things that we have to, I think, at least entertain, right? But we can at least entertain the idea and use our critical thinking to say, okay, does that make sense? So also, folks, show is also as a podcast. So if you want to listen instead of watch, though, with this show in particular, I would recommend trying to watch if you can. There's a lot of visuals in Dave's presentation, but you can also listen to it and still get the majority of the conversation out of just listening, if you're listening while mowing the lawn or doing something like that. So, but if you do want to listen on your favorite podcast app, search for Man in America, and you'll find me on there. So, all right, folks, let's go ahead and dive right into this interview with Dave Weiss. Dave, it is, I'd say, an honor to have you on. What an interesting topic. There's a lot that we're going to be digging into, but just want to thank you for joining us today.
I appreciate you having me. I'm a fan of your format of your show, and I'm thrilled to be here.
It's funny because I honestly, up until about 2 weeks ago, I had never really even looked at the whole idea of flat Earth. And I'm still not convinced. You know what I mean? Like I all I know, which we'll come to from this research, is that there's a lot of things about the whole globe idea that really don't make sense. And that's the one thing that I know, right? And so, but as a couple weeks ago, then I saw you did like a 3-hour interview with Dave over on Flyover Conservatives. And, I listened to a lot of their stuff. They're good friends of mine. And he said, look, Seth, you should check this out. It's a really interesting interview. I didn't know what to expect. I went in there thinking, okay, well, this will probably be pretty easy to disprove, because in the past, in comments or, on social media, some people have said, hey, Seth, have you looked into flat Earth before? And my blanket response was always like, no, that's absurd. All right. But something that I've learned, and I'm really trying to do, is like, just look at this as a critical thinking exercise, because, in school, I was taught evolution. Like I was taught a lot of things. I was taught, I think in many ways, a very false version of our own history and our own existence. But then even if you look further and look at what what is the mainstream saying, whether it's about the jibby jab, as we were talking about, or really almost everything. It's like the more I've kind of woken up, I've realized that so much of what I thought I believed in was a lie. So that's taught me to, again, use that critical thinking muscle and approach something and say, well, maybe this is just another one of those lies. So let me at least look at some of the information. And I was so impressed with just the information and the receipts that you brought to interview with David. I texted David, say, hey, David, can you connect me with Dave? Because I think this is going to be a really fun show. So just want to give a little bit of that background as to how we got to where we are right now.
So let me tell you, you're telling the exact same story that we all have. I had a podcast, conspiracy podcast, and looked into like wild stuff. And people like, Dave, have you looked into flat Earth? Same thing. No, it's ridiculous. You're banned for life for ever commenting on our show again, because you're too dumb to listen to our comedy podcast, our comedy conspiracy podcast. But then I was forced by a good friend, and I went and I looked, and I went in with a closed mind, not like you. I went in with a closed mind to disprove flat Earth, prove the globe. And that's how you become a flat earther. When you hear flat Earth, you think a disc floating in space, right? This is what they want you to see. Google images of flat Earth. This is the first one that's going to come up. It comes up from the Flat Earth Society. That is a government-run disinformation site. People are like, well, what are we, the only flat planet out there? Why are the other ones round? We'll get into why they appear to be round, what they really are. And then you have to do a lot of deprogramming, because, when you're an infant, your parents probably had NASA sheets on your bed with a mobile of the solar system over your crib. Then they let you watch Sesame Street, astronauts and Disney. And then they go to kindergarten, globe in the front of the class, right? And it's all globe programming and all your favorite movies, Star Wars, Star Trek, all space stuff. And there's a reason for it. We're going to get into that. But all of that programming is really hard to break. And as you said a moment ago, and I'll throw it back to you, you're always willing to look at things, but isn't flat Earth a step too far? We all know it's a globe, right? It was proven by the Greeks 2,000 years ago. We'll get into that deception. And once you look, you can't unsee it. The problem is that they've convinced people that flat Earth is something that it's not so hard that people are refusing to look. Only when you look can you see.
And there's also, it's funny because if I take a step back, as I've kind of built up my critical thinking toolbox, there's a few different principles that I'm now identifying, okay, to understand what is true. One is, are they teaching it in the schools? Usually that's an indicator that it's false, right? Like I said, evolution. The fact that they're teaching that as truth now, not even as a theory. It used to be they'd present, here's the theory of the biblical theory, here's the theory of evolution. It's no longer that. It's like, this is science, trust the science. So if they're teaching it in schools, if the censors are overriding it, that's another thing. Like we were talking about on YouTube, that YouTube as an example, which is a massive portal for people to understand the world around themselves, right? If they're questioning things. So if you search for it, all you get is, here is why it's disproved. Here's why it's disproved. It's honestly, it's the same thing as if I search for, is the jab bad? Does it have, bad side effects, right? All you would get is the same, here's the thing you're supposed to believe. So and that's just the beginning of it. So the fact that it's demonized so much, all this, those are all these little kind of indicators to say, maybe there's something to this, because I think that you and I can both agree, and this is in my own journey of kind of spiritually understanding this world, is that we are living, I really believe, in a world similar to the Matrix, from the perspective that they've created a prison for our minds. And anything that questions the prison they've created for our minds is demonized, is threatened, is censored. But I think that that's really the ultimate journey, is trying to understand, okay, what are the lies they've built around me? Because I think that the reality of our world that we live in, we know so little of it. Even getting into the energy. I mean, look, we've got, this is a quick side note, we've got chemtrails like you would never believe here in Ohio. We live in the rural, in a very big farming area. And so I've been looking into chembusters, right? These things that work with orgone, and it's like, there's this whole other science to it that gets into ether, gets into Tesla. And it's like, whoa, like they didn't teach us any of this stuff.
Right. I used to laugh at the chembusters. Now I have spiral, stuff for my garden that also takes care of the chemtrails. And have you looked into boiling vinegar outside?
No.
You boil vinegar, white vinegar, and the steam goes up and it causes a chain reaction and it turns the sky blue. It's crazy. I did it once and I'm like, that's a coincidence. And I did it again. That's a coincidence. Fourth time, I'm on my fourth time. And each time, they're still spraying and the spray is just disappearing now. And then the sky turns blue and real clouds come back. That's a whole nother thing. Like, what are real clouds? What are they? Is it just for the weather, or is something spiritual happening up there? My personal view that clouds are not what they tell us. Clouds are intelligence. Like, clouds are angelic, if you will. Think about it. They deliver water to all the places that need it on this living world that we are part of. Okay. Is that by random chance of heating and cooling? I don't think so.
Exactly. So let's go ahead and let's just dive right into the idea of flat Earth. And it's funny because it's something that's so wild that people don't even want to look at it. And I'll tell the audience that's just watching or listening that think of where you are now and think of where you were 5 years ago. There's probably a lot of things right now that you believe to be true that you thought were wild conspiracies 5 years ago. Now, we have to be super discerning. It doesn't mean that we can go believe in anything and believe that, that Joe Biden is actually Trump in a mask, you know what I mean? Or something, who knows what, right? We have to be really discerning.
I haven't heard that one
yet. Yeah. But how about we start with, one of the reasons why I think I always looked at flat Earth and thought there's no way this is even possible is because I imagined a floating disc in the kind of hurtling through the atmosphere or through space. And I thought, like, well, what would happen on the edge of it? Like, wouldn't you just fall off the edge of it? Right. So how about, can you just kind of break down what the kind of idea of, like, correct the perception of what it means to have the idea of a flat Earth?
Right. So the first thing we think of is a disk in space. And then most people have saw a famous video by a deception channel called Vsauce, where the guy says, if the Earth was flat, as you walked away from the center, you'd have to start leaning away. By the time you got to the edge, you'd be standing sideways because gravity is pulling you towards the center. Well, no flat earther believes that. That's absolutely ridiculous. But that's what people are thinking. Okay, like, well, either that's true or you fall off the edge. There is no edge. Large bodies of water. When I say large bodies, anything more than a gallon of water needs containment. And when at rest, it lies flat. Okay. Testably, scientifically, measurably, provably flat. If you look at a pond, the surface of that pond is flat from edge to edge. The water also needs containment. What is containment? Well, you need a bottom and you need sides. And those sides have to be higher than the water, because what happens if you lower one side of the pond's edge? The water will flow and find it. It'll ultimately seek the ultimate base level. It'll relentlessly seek the ultimate base level. Okay. So think of a pond, think of a lake as a bigger pond, think of the world oceans as a giant pond. Okay. We're a giant pond. Okay. And so here's our pond. Here's all the continents. You got Africa, America over here, South America, America's over here, South America, Australia. And the shoreline of our pond contains the water. Well, that shoreline is called Antarctica. Okay. Did you know that Antarctica is the highest land on Earth?
I didn't know that.
They don't teach you that in school. The Antarctic Plateau is the highest continent land on Earth. Well, that's the shoreline of our world. Now, how did they get us? Well, here's the question. You're on here, right? And just going a little further, the North Pole is at the center of our pond. So put a big magnetic mountain there, let's say. It's just a magnetic mountain. So no matter where you are on this pond, your compass is going to point towards the center, okay? South is every direction away from the center, because your back is to the north, you're heading south. East and west are circles around the center, just like on a globe. What do you mean, just like on a globe? I'll show you in a minute. Okay. When you're going east or west, you're not going in a straight line, flat or globe. You're constantly correcting to the north to maintain your 90 degrees to the north. If the north is over there, 90 degrees east. As you walk, you have to keep this hand pointed towards the North Pole, and you're going to walk in a circle.
It's almost like if
right?
you were going to
come back right.
If you're going to draw a circle using, say, a nail with a string and a pencil, that as you move as you move the pencil around the string, like left or right is still east or west, but you're always still kind of orienting, kind of facing your north is all true north, right? Well, there you go. Okay.
Anybody can do this. I got a magnet here. I got a compass. The needle's pointing towards the center. I'm trying to push the compass west. I have to keep correcting to the north. So I'm going in a circle to maintain a heading of 270 degrees west. That's the same on a globe Earth, okay? In the north, at least it is. Then I'm heading east. Look, the compass is pointing north. So my heading of 90 degrees brings me equidistant around and all the way back, right to where I started. Now, let's say I want a dead record. I'm not going to correct to the north. So I set my little stick up and I say, okay, that's west. And as soon as I start moving, my back is now to the center and I'm heading south. The compass didn't turn. The magnet's just not strong enough. And I'm heading south. I didn't turn. My first step was west. And then all of a sudden I'm going south. Okay. So on a globe, if you went south off of Africa, you should pop up over here in the middle of nowhere. Or if you go off of Santiago, you should pop up over in Australia. But no one's ever done that. Billions of people have gone east and west. Zero. So now I'm heading, look at this. I'm heading north, north, north. And as soon as I pass the North Pole, compass does a 180 and I'm heading south. Every straight line becomes south, right? Interesting, right?
It is. And so there was a video that you showed with David where you drew the white ring around, I think, America. And it showed, because that was very helpful for me to understand the concept of this, because when I looked at it as just like this plane, it was like, okay, this flying disc, and look, and I'll kind of say this, and I'll probably repeat this a handful of times in the show. I actually don't know what shape our Earth is, but what I do know is that as we're going to be digging into in here, there is so much that just doesn't make sense. And for a lot of reasons, this model makes a lot more sense. Now, I also think that, go ahead.
Good.
I also say that I also think that in trying to understand this, that even still, there's so much that we don't know. And so even understanding, okay, gravity as we know it, or, using science, because it's like all we know is just the science that we were taught with. There could be other versions of science that have been hidden for hundreds of years, that it's like maybe gravity itself is not even gravity like a flat earther believes it, or gravity like another person believes it. That maybe it's some sort of just like it's the material realm that is held together like a glue or something. There's so many ideas that we couldn't really understand. So anyway, I'll let you get back to where you were.
So the globe, believing in the heliocentric globe, is a religion. It's a faith-based religion with zero proof. I want everybody listening, get 3 bowls. Get 3 bowls in front of you and some beans or M&Ms or whatever you have. And every time something only works on a flat earth, put one in there. Anytime something works on a flat earth and a globe earth, like circumnavigation east-west works on both, put one in there. And anytime something comes up that only works on a globe, put something in there. And if you don't have 3 bowls, you don't really need that 3rd bowl, because nothing is going in there. Okay. Nothing. And then when you have these 2 bowls that have a lot of stuff in it and one that's completely empty, you have to look at the preponderance of evidence and say, all right, something's up here. Flat is not a shape. Okay. Flat is a description of level and horizontal, right? Large bodies of water at rest lie flat. And, if you got a flat lake, you describe the water flat from edge to edge. What happens if you put another lake next to that and another lake next to that? How many flat lakes in a row does it take to make a sphere? And, people go, well, the Earth is so big, you can't notice the turn. But then they want you to believe that boats are going to disappear over the horizon, visible to your naked eye. We'll get into that too. So, and I know what everyone's going to say. Boats over the horizon, seasons, day and night, sunsets, star rotation, all of the same arguments I had, same ones, right? Because these are the ones that were indoctrinated into us. I can watch the sunset and then I can go up the top of a building. I can watch it set again. Yes, welcome to flat Earth. Let me explain as we go through this, right? So they want you to believe a bunch of nonsense, and we're going to get into it. So here's this pink line is the Antarctic Treaty, 60 degrees south. No one's allowed to explore or take extra fuel south of that. That's still like 1,000 miles from Antarctica. And no one's allowed to independently explore out there, okay? The question is, you get to Antarctica, you climb up onto the plateau. What's out here? What I call the outer space, right? If we live in here, this might be called the outer space. But how can you hide that from humans and not make them want to go? And the example I use is if you have a mountain lion as a pet and you put him in a 1/4 acre yard with a fence, he's just going to pace that fence all day long, right? Put him in maybe a bigger, an acre, probably the same thing. Put him in a 500-mile circular fence. He's going to have a good time. When he hits the fence, he's going to be like, I'll just go back the other way. That's fine. Put a human in there, 50,000 miles. Sees that fence, what's he going to say? What's on the other side of that fence?
Exactly.
I want to go over there.
Exactly.
Okay. So how do you hide the fence? You take this and just cut it out. So we cut out, just leaving, a couple 1,000 miles of Antarctica, right? You cut it out and you wrap it around a sphere, right? And when you wrap it around a sphere, you say, this is the world that you live on. And guess what? You're not allowed to explore this white area. There's no photos from satellites. We'll get into that. Or high altitude photos of Antarctica. Yes, there are bases along the edge, but this edge here is not the edge of a continent. It's the edge of our flat Earth. Where'd it go? Oh, there it is. Okay. It's the outer edge. Get back here a second. There we go. It's this outer edge. So there are stuff here. There's bases along some of these areas. right? But wrap it around there, tell people that they're not allowed to go explore there. You've just hidden the whole world from them. Now you're trapped in the matrix. It's a prison for your mind.
And I'll say just I'll say a quick point is that looking at it like that with that image and seeing that as well, like that particular map right there, if you imagine that Antarctica, instead of it being an island on the southern part of the ball, if it's a ring around the outside, that because the Earth is so large, to people that are traveling on Earth or, kind of going in a direction, we would have no idea. Like, so you could say that, like, if the Earth is so big that you can make sense of the fact that they would be able to foreseeably convince us that it was either this shape or that shape, and we would have no way of really knowing. You know what I mean? It's not like, and that was also one of the other things I thought of too when I first kind of heard about the idea of flat Earth. I just dismissed it. Was just that I was like, well, it's just silly because you're going to fall off the edge, and seeing that as like, oh, okay, that's an interesting perspective. That makes me scratch my head.
I want to make another point. To prove the shape of the Earth, we do not need to go into what they call outer space, and we do not need to go to Antarctica where we're not allowed to go. We can prove it right here with today's consumer optics. The Nikon came out with their P1000 super zoom camera, and we could zoom in on things that should be well below, the horizon on a ball, something that goes away. Watch my fingernail. It's a boat. It disappears behind the curve. Zooming in isn't going to bring it back. All right. Because it's behind a physical curve. Right. But we can zoom in on things and bring them back. Right. But there's different reasons things disappear from the bottom up. Not just one. There's a whole bunch of factors, and they change daily. So, a glober will go, well, I'm looking at that city and the bottom half of that building is missing. But then the next day, I could see the bottom half of the building, but I can't see the beach. Right. Well, now I can, and it changes each day. And they just, that's proof of curvature. No, that's proof of atmospheric distortion, proof of waves in the foreground, proof of all sorts of optical things. We'll get into that in a second. But so 2 places on Earth you're not allowed to go, Antarctica and the North Pole. They're both guarded. Right. And I'll show you how they're guarded. And people, well, I can go to Antarctica. I can book a trip. There's 100 different companies, right? All of those companies are run by one guy that works under the Antarctic Commission. The 100 shell companies. You have to spend $10 to $50, $60, $70,000 to go for 3 days. They take you to this little peninsula, a little island, which is bigger than some countries, called Deception Island, right next to Rothschild Island. Okay. And they show you some penguins. They show you some ice. And then they kick you out. That's it. You're not allowed to go anywhere, right? So what is that? You went here. You went right there, right where that dot is. You hung out there. Huge area, right? Remember, this is, 2,000 miles. Just this map here. What's beyond here? What's beyond Antarctica? There may or may not be anything. Some people think there's a hard, fast dome that comes down. I'm not a believer in that. I believe the sky is flat, extended, and I believe that there is more land beyond here. But again, we want the right to go explore and prove it one way or the other, right? We want airships back because airships can go for very long distances, don't need fuel, solar panel, hang a wire down from an airship, and it'll pull energy right out of the ether, okay? They don't want you to know there's free energy everywhere. That's another thing. Control us with energy, control us in their prison, the prison for our mind, control us with their money, their fiat money. They've got pretty much total control. Pay for energy when it should be free. Everyone's freaking out about food shortages. Do you have 10 square feet of dirt on your yard? Okay, you can feed the whole neighborhood with that, right? There's so many things, but it's all about fear, lack, and giving away your God-given common sense for complete and total nonsense, or globe sense, I call it now. But so you can't physically go to Antarctica and explore freely, and you can't virtually go. Check this out. Anyone can do this. Get Google Earth on your computer, and you take out the measuring tool, and I'm measuring South America. Bam, it shows me the square miles of South America. Perfect, no problem. Now let's measure Antarctica. So we draw a line around Antarctica, and when we click it, look what happens. It makes this big,
strange.
And well, but think about it. If Antarctica is inverted, it's measuring the land around it. It's measuring all the way around. Bizarre. Okay. And that's not the only place on Earth that happens. You can measure perfectly anywhere, but if you go to the north, again, the North Pole, and do the same thing, how weird is that? It's like, why won't they let us measure this area? And their answer is because the algorithm, how this thing works, can't figure it out. Look at that.
Interesting.
How come it's not measuring what's in here? Right now, I can measure Greenland right here, right? That's pretty close to the north. Let's see if that works. Okay, let's you measure that. Why can't we measure the two places that we can't go physically or virtually? They don't let you measure it. Go down south. Try this is Madagascar, New Zealand, Madagascar. Yeah, no problem. Fascinating, right?
It is. It is. So how about let's dive into some of the so I'll walk you through my journey of this in terms of what were some of the points that again made me think that doesn't make sense. It's almost you can't even argue it. It makes that much nonsense, right? So there's a couple of those items. One is the flight paths, what I want to get into. But I first want to, if it's okay with you, I'd like to start with the curvature. So I went and I watched one of their documentaries. It was also a book. It was like 200 proofs, right, that the Earth is flat. Right. And so he spent a lot of time on there showing. So it's like, this is basic geometry where you can calculate how big the Earth is. And you could say, okay, if from this point to that point, if that's 100 miles, the globe should come up, say 10,000 feet in between those 2 points, yet you can still see those 2 points, right? So can we go over some of those examples?
Sure. So again, on a ball, 24,901 miles around, like they tell us, there is a rate of curvature. And that formula is very easy. It's called 8 inches per mile squared. Oh my God, that's so complicated. No, it's not, because it doesn't go 8 inches per mile because that would be a ramp. It gets exponentially, as you go farther out, it drops faster and faster. So 8 inches per mile squared becomes a parabola after a couple thousand miles, but we don't need nobody can see that far, right? We only need 100 miles less, but it goes out to 1,000 miles, and it is as accurate. It's based off of the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. I can show you how that works. And the numbers come out almost exactly. Like over 100 miles, I think the difference is like a foot or something, right? When we're talking, over a mile of curvature. So it's insignificant. So this is the Earth that they tell us. So imagine we live right here on the top of the Earth, and you're standing on the top of the Earth, and this line is horizontal to the bottoms of your feet. Okay? That's a horizontal line. Globers will make you think that the horizontal line is curved. Okay? You got your two friends out here, right? Well, on a ball, that would be down for you, and it should be for them. But on a ball, they would have to be down here and standing like that. Okay? Right? On a ball, there's no such thing as horizontal, and there's no such thing as parallel, right? Because you can't have two parallel lines on a ball because they'd be curved, right? So this is, I'm going to show you a couple things, and then we'll get into some hard things. So this is a plane flying from California to Cleveland, okay? And in that distance, there should be 500 miles of drop of curvature, okay? Time lapse. Do you see the curvature? Is the pilot nosing down? 500 miles of curvature. Looks pretty flat. Airplanes fly straight and level over an Earth plane, okay?
Yeah, it looks flat.
Yeah, well, airplanes fly straight and level over the Earth plane. Real quick, just for, I'll go through this really quick. Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared would have 90 degrees equals c squared. So we look at that. We got a person here, and we have a 90 degrees down to the center of the Earth. And this would be the drop right here. So we know they tell us the radius of the Earth is 3,963. But let's say we go out to 100 miles. We do the math and hold on a second. Hidden. There we go. We do the math and there's 15,000 feet. And that turns out to be where's the drop? The drop is 1.26 miles, which comes out exactly a squared plus b squared equals c squared. It's the same thing. 1.26 miles of drop at 100 miles. But there's Navy, whistleblowers out there to say that they can pinpoint another ship over a mile away with a pencil thin laser beam. They can shoot the railgun 100 miles and hit their target. Well, their target is a mile below the curve. What are they doing? Lobbing it over? They got a spotter over there. And it's provable on a ball. This is a fact. This isn't a theory. This is, using their math, right? So let's look at things that are too far that don't work on this. Okay. So this is one of my favorites. In Illusion, France. All right, first, the sun. Let me just go back here for a second. So the sun travels. So this is my app, the Flat Earth, Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app. It's the best way around Google censorship and to learn about flat Earth. You have the outer circle here, which is the tropic. Whoops, sorry about that. The outer circle here is the Tropic of Cancer, the Capricorn, and the inner yellow circle is the Tropic of Cancer, and the little red line in the middle is the equator. And the sun migrates between these two, causing the season. So right now it's almost June when it'll be over the Tropic of Cancer. Let me just move it to June. So in June, it's over the Tropic of Cancer. We have our inner northern summer because the sun's closer. When it's closer, it's higher and it keeps us warmer. Australia is having their winter, but 6 months later, oops, what happened there? 6 months later, December, the sun goes all the way out here and they have their summer. We have our winter because the sun's farther away. When it's farther away, it's lower in the sky, right? So getting back to the distance. So during that migration, it going out and then back in, out and back in. This is a spot in Illusion, France. We're looking out Canigou Mountains, 175 miles away. We can't see it because the top of Canigou Mountain from this elevated height should be over a half a mile, closer to a mile below the curve. Well, guess what? We can't see it. But twice a year, the sun lines up with the viewing spot and that mountain. Now, you don't see me. You see the light that's bouncing off of me from the light that's behind my computer. The light that's behind my computer is brighter than the light that's bouncing off of me. It's just how light works. If you look at the source of the light, it's brighter. So the light that's bouncing off of Mount Canigou the light that's bouncing off Mount Canigou doesn't have the brightness to push 175 miles to the viewer. However, the sun is bright enough. And twice a year when it lines up, the sun starts going beyond Mount Canigou. And all of a sudden you can see it. The very top of Mount Canigou right here should be over a half a mile below the curve. That's the mountain. Now the globe excuse is, well, the mountain is below the curve and the sun set a half an hour ago, but it's refracting up to fool you and stopping at eye level, right? This isn't a refraction. This is an actual backlighting, blocking of the sun by Canigou Mountain.
So,
right?
Okay. So
impossible.
So technically, if I'm standing in point A, looking at those mountains, what is the distance between me and those mountains that we're seeing?
175 miles.
175 miles. Now, according to the Pythagorean the theorem, right? Pythagoras, his theorem. What should the drop be? So if I'm right here looking at those mountains, and those mountains are 170, you say 170 miles away, right?
175 miles. So,
okay, then what is the
so I have the I forget the elevation right here, but let's just say I'm standing at sea level and at 175 miles, let me set that to 175. At 175 miles, a person standing at sea level should have 19,000 feet of curvature. 19,000 feet. That's almost 4 miles of curvature.
So
right?
the only
Is that right?
way that I would be able, in the globe theory idea, the only way I'd be able to see those mountains in front of the sun over the course of 175 miles is if those mountains were maybe 35,000 feet tall and I was seeing the top 16,000, right? Is my math correct? Like that's the only way I'd be able to see those. But how tall are those mountains?
I don't have all the specs there. We have videos on it. In my app, there's videos you can find. I don't have all the specs at the tip of my hands. But here's the thing.
I'll look up real quick. What's the name of the mountains, real quick?
Mount Canigou. Mount Canigou from Malousia, France. While you're looking it up, let me tell you something.
I've got it.
So if you're standing next to calm water, and you're 6 feet tall, you should not be able to see the surface of the water past 3 miles, because at 3 miles is a 6 foot drop. Okay. So the surface of the water should be obscured by a horizontal eye zone, I call it, or horizon, and you shouldn't be able to see the surface of the water beyond there. Right. So we can see way farther, and I'll show you some examples, but this is a balloon at about 100 to 120,000 feet. Okay. The Earth is way down there below that atmospheric cloud deck down there. Okay. Think about this. And this is where your brain's going to short circuit. It's going to go, I don't understand this. And it's really easy. I don't understand this. It doesn't make any sense. And the reason that your brain is saying that is because it doesn't make any sense. And there is no way to understand it. But Kansas, which is supposedly pretty flat, it is 400 miles across. You know what the curvature of 400 miles is? The curvature of 400 miles is over 20 miles of curvature. So the curvature from one end of Kansas to the other is the same amount of drop as this balloon has down to the Earth. Flat Kansas. Short circuit, can't figure it out, makes no sense because it doesn't. The globe is, can I use the R word?
Sure. Yeah.
It's retarded. I'm sorry. It's so stupid. It's so stupid when you look at the math. Okay. Here's the thing. What are stars? I don't know. Are they the size that they tell us? Provably not. Okay. Well, what are they? How far are they? I don't know. But they're provably not what they tell us. All right. So I'm all over the place. Where were we going down a track?
Okay. So I'll take us back on the track, but since you have this up, so I'm looking at this video behind you, I'll full screen you so that people can see it a little better. I'm guessing. So if this balloon is, you say what, 20,000 miles up? Is that what you roughly?
No, 20 miles. Sorry. 20 miles, 120.
No, okay. Sorry. Feet. I was thinking 20,000 feet. So, okay. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. So 20 miles
120.
up. Okay.
Yeah.
That basically, if we look out to the edge of, say, the left and right of your screen, right, between the very left part of your screen and the very right part of your screen on there, that distance, I'm just guessing, but that would probably be hundreds of miles that far out on the horizon. So like that, to me, that's a flat line. Like if I hold my pencil up to that line behind you, I don't see any indication of curvature. And actually, now a lot of people say, oh, well, I saw this, this image of a guy that was on whether it's a space balloon or Red Bull jump, Red Bull thing. And like you can turn, like I can turn my backyard into a globe with a wide enough lens, right? So you can use a wide angle lens. It turns anything into a round shape, right? So anyway, so I wanted to, I want to go back to the Canigou. Oh, there you go. You want to show that real quick?
Let me just show you something. So this is Felix when he did the Red Bull jump, 127,000 feet, and they show this. Well, we zoomed in on all these little features here. This is all New Mexico. So the question is, when did New Mexico
become the size of Africa?
Third, yeah, and the size of Africa. This is like a third of the Earth. Okay, and it's clearly a fisheye lens. And we've brought all this stuff up. And Neil deGrasse Tyson, the head shill out there, he backed up. He even pointed out, you can't see the curvature from that far, from that height. first you could see the curvature in airplanes. Then we showed that you couldn't. Then they go, well, you have to be in a jet fighter at 70,000 feet. Then we showed how they faked that with fisheye lenses. Then he backed up and goes, well, you have to be up at 100,000 feet. Then we showed how they faked that. And now he says you have to be higher than that. They constantly move the globe post. Okay. So just real quick, looking at Felix here. Let me see if where's the picture I'm looking for? You take that picture and you put it on a globe, right? You have to match the curve. That's not New Mexico. That's not New Mexico, right? So when there was all fisheye lenses, but the one in the cockpit behind his chair was not a fisheye lens. And when he got in at ground level, the horizon's right here. And at 127,000 feet, when he opened the door, the horizon has not dropped. As farther out you look on a globe, the lower that horizon's going to be, right? This is what Google Earth says it should look like. It should have dropped that much, but it's exactly the same, okay? It's exactly the same, right? Here he is when he opened the door, right? And it's going to show, here he is when he got in, right? It's literally, and the camera didn't move. The camera didn't move, right? That's a problem. And the other thing is, when you go up high and you're looking out, the horizon will appear to drop. You know why? Because the horizon is when you can't see any farther, and it becomes the horizon, right? And so you can't see any farther, so that apparent horizon is going to get a little bit closer to you, closer to underneath you, and it'll look like it's dropping. Like the horizon, like you kind of see a little space right here. The horizon could be out here for all we know. We're just not able to really see it, right? But as we go up, it doesn't really change.
You can see that, yeah.
Got it?
So
yeah.
Can you pull up Mount Canigou again? Or Canigou?
Mount Canigou. Yeah.
Because again, like, to me, this is one of those points where my brain's kind of breaking a little bit and saying, how can that work? So to go over this again, so as that sun sets, okay, I see mountains right there. Okay. Those mountains are 175 miles away. And according to the curvature of the globe, those mountains looking forward should have dropped by, what I think your calculation was around 19,000 feet, right? So
right, but the higher you are, you have to subtract that from it. The calculator takes your eye height into account.
Yeah. So say I'm at 1,000 feet, kind of high, then there'd be an 18,000 feet, right? Kind of difference, right? Something like that. So
something like.
I looked it up. The highest peak of Mount Canigou is a little over 9,000 feet. Okay. So there's like, to me, like it's almost like, I'm not necessarily saying that this proves like this is precisely it. This is the one thing that proves flat Earth, because maybe there's other things I don't understand. But what I do understand is that doesn't make sense on a globe, right? Like, because if there is a 19,000 foot drop over 175 miles, according to the curvature of the math, this is simple geometry. Even though I've forgotten a lot of it because I went to art school, that I would only see, looking out over that way, I would only be able to see the edge of the ocean, right? I would only see just the edge of the ocean, because those mountains would be hidden. They'd be on the other side of the earth almost, right?
They'd be below the drop.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yep. Okay.
Right. And according to globe math, we don't need to go that far. For example, this is an oil rig. It's 6.2 miles, 9.4 miles. The camera is 1 foot above the water. A 6 foot tall person should see the surface of the water no farther than 3 miles. That's on a perfectly clear, calm day. Put a little waves in the foreground, shortens your horizon, because those waves become the new horizon, right? Put a little fog in the air, shortens your horizon. Clear out all the air, suck all the air off the earth like space should do. So you have perfect vision. You can't see past 3 miles because of the physical curve. 1 mile, the horizon should be 1.2 miles away, right? Round up to, let's say, 2 miles away. At 9.4 miles, there should be 59 feet of curvature at this rig. But we can see the surface of the water for dozens of miles beyond it. Okay? When you watch the video showing this one, you could see the surface of the water dozens of miles behind it. Now there's lots of optics. Like you're going to see people like, oh, these windmills, the windmills are going below the horizon. You can see the arm go down and it's going to look like it goes below. There's magnification issues with when you're down close to the water, where the water will magnify things. You have the wave front edge, which causes a false horizon. Let me show you what I mean by that. So here is, when you think about, you got a cumulus cloud day, you got clouds sitting in the sky, right? They're on that flat deck, right? 10,000 feet above your head, but 20, 30 miles away, those clouds are touching the water. And at the point where they come together and touch the water, you can't see any farther. That's your horizontal eye zone. Okay. But if you zoom in with today's consumer cameras, you zoom in, you make that bigger. So now you can see farther as it goes away until it comes together. Make sense?
Yeah.
So let's look at this sailboat. What sailboat? There's no sailboat here. But if I take the horizon and I'm zooming in and I'm increasing the angular size, all of a sudden my eyes go, oh, look, there is a sailboat there. Okay. Now, did I zoom over a curve, or did I just bring that back into your visual range? Now, imagine my finger is a wave. Can it block that whole boat? Well, not yet. But here in the foreground, it can block the whole boat, just like these little waves are blocking your true horizon. And that boat disappears into your horizontal eye zone.
So
now a globe will tell you that that's over the curve. Then when I zoom it back in, they go, well, it's not far enough over the curve. And then we're like, well, look at the oil rig. Well, you did your measurements wrong. Then they'll say, oh, no, refraction, and everything stops at eye level. Think about refraction, though. If you're looking, if you're standing here, this has to refract that high. This has to refract less. This has to refract less. It all has to refract at a different amount and magically stop at eye level to trick you into thinking the Earth is flat, or maybe just the Earth is flat.
So do you have any idea of how far away that boat is from the person doing that?
This one, I didn't take this picture. I don't know, but it doesn't matter. What it's showing you is that you can't see forever. Things get too small. The wave front edge, the wavier it is, the worse. Buildings will be hidden from you. So I'm trying to think, where's this one? This is a picture I took, and the whole deck of this boat is missing. All right, and that's because these waves way in the foreground here are blocking it. But when I zoom out, all of this water beyond this boat disappears. And all I see is the bottom part of the boat missing. Okay. So it's a real trick of the eyes. Here is, I forget the distance on this one, but we got the Space Needle in Seattle, right? And we zoom out, we got the Space Needle. Now this can't go behind the curve. It's too big. Got a whole city here. You got the shoreline. It's kind of wavy. And as we zoom out, where is it going? Where's it going? Where is it going? It's going over the curve if you're a glober, okay? It's the fact that we can zoom in on things, and we can zoom in on things that are so far, that should be so far below the curve, there's no excuse, okay? When we zoom in, we can see that there's water beyond this boat. There's land, higher land beyond this boat. But when we zoom out, it all disappears. Okay. So does that prove the Earth is flat? No, maybe it proves the Earth is 1,000 times bigger than they tell us. I don't know. For me, it proves the Earth is flat.
And that's kind of I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's really kind of where I've come to. You know what I mean with this is that I'm still researching, and I'm fascinated by this, but the only thing I know for certain right now is that the numbers that they're feeding us, the size of our Earth, all this stuff, there's a handful of these things that in a lot of ways completely debunk what we've been fed, right? So so it's kind of like, I now know that this is false. And so I'm trying to figure out, okay, what is true? It's like, yeah, is the Earth, 1 million miles wide and or who knows, or whatever it is, like, I don't know. You know what I mean? But can we take a look at the flight paths? Because
yes,
this is an interesting point. This is one of those things where it's like, it's hard to make sense of this unless everything is just flat, right?
It's flat. Okay. That's the bottom line. Everything points to flat, right? But then, if you show something, on a floor, well, you should be able to see this, but you can't see it. Okay, the Earth is a globe, right? But then you say, well, we got this experiment, and these are the results we expect if it's flat, and these are the results we expect if it's globe. And then the results come back on the flat side, and the globe goes, oh, no, we're going to change our model. We're going to add refraction. We're going to add this. We're going to add that, and now it works, right? That's what we call moving the globe post, because that's all they know how to do. Real quick, zoom out. This entire building disappears, but the bottom floors are missing. Can't see the beach at this resort. Okay, but look at these balconies. They're all the same height. What's going on here? They're getting compressed. What does this show you? It shows you that there's atmospheric compression. Okay, you can't even see in it, and then these waves here. This wave line could be 10 miles in front of this hotel. You don't know, right? And the hotel's getting smaller and smaller behind it. Like, can my finger hide my whole face? No, but if my finger was closer, it could hide my whole face, right? And so once you understand how perspective works and everything, you'll start to figure it out. So here, let me ask you a question. And ignore the hollow parts because of the green screen. North hemisphere, equator, southern hemisphere, right? How many airports you think are in the north? I don't know, 10,000, 20,000, 5,000, who knows? Pick any combination of any two airports, an origin and a destination, and look up the flight path for that. 0 of them will go below the equator to get to their other northern location. That's logical, right? Like, why would you go below the equator? Like, even if you picked one on near the equator, north of the equator, and another one over here, north of the equator, you wouldn't go below the equator. You'd just kind of either go around or over, right? Well, that's the way it is. That's reality. Same thing should be true in the south. All these planes that are flying upside down over a curved spinning ball, they should never have to go to the north to get to their destinations, but that's not what we see, right? Here's one from Durban in South Africa to Sydney. Now, here's Durban on a globe, and here's Sydney. Well, I don't know. That seems to be the path to take. It seems shorter than this leg, okay? But they go all the way up to Dubai and then all the way back down. Look at it on a flat Earth map.
So basically, you can't go, say you're flying from Durban to Sydney, you can't buy a direct flight that goes.
You probably can. Now we used to say that the hardest flight was from Santiago to New Zealand or Australia because it's too far for the amount of time that it takes. But we found out how they do it. Okay. There's a couple combinations. One, the one plane, there's only one model plane that can do it. And there's only a small handful of military pilots that fly this plane. Okay. This plane has 7 layers of heat resistant paint. What does that suggest? Maybe it's going a little faster than they're telling us, right? And then it flies at 45,000 feet. And if we look at the airflow maps, there's like 200-mile-an-hour winds up there that they can get the tailwind boost.
Folks, I've got a quick message for you. Right now, the world is very, very actively going through a process that the experts are calling de-dollarization. And look, I've been talking about this for well over a year now, but maybe you're now starting to see it in the mainstream because they're now talking about it because it's really happening. Well, what does this mean? Well, there's a few factors, but there's 2 main factors. One is that the BRICS nations, okay, this is Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and a whole coalition, they are actively getting rid of the US dollar. They're stopping their trade in the US dollar. And this is significant because the dollar's losing its status as the global reserve currency and as the petrodollar. This is what gives our dollar its value. But the other thing is that we have an enemy that's within our own government. Biden and his administration, they are actively working to destroy the dollar. And you can see it in their actions that they're not trying to save the dollar. They're actually trying to destroy it because they want to roll out their central bank digital currency. So you have these 2 forces coming in both at the same time, working to destroy the dollar, because what happens when that dollar gets destroyed. Well, literally your life savings, if they're sitting in the dollar, whether it's in a savings account or a bank account or the stock market or an IRA or a 401k, those savings, that money could literally be wiped out in a matter of days, weeks, even a couple of months. We're already seeing it with inflation, which is going to be much, much worse. If you're seeing the writing on the wall and you're thinking, what can I do to protect myself? Well, there's a few recommendations that I always have. One is just to make sure you've got your food. If you have land, ammunition, whatever it takes, real tangible assets. But fundamentally, the thing I recommend most is precious metals, gold and silver. Look, precious metals have survived the collapse of currencies, the rise and fall of civilization. And also a big factor in this is that the BRICS nations, their new currency they're introducing to replace the dollar, a lot of experts are saying it will be backed by commodities like precious metals. And so you can see there's going to be a stabilization and I believe a dramatic increase in the value of precious metals. Not to mention, look at the past 6 months, we're seeing 30% plus increase in the prices of silver and gold. So if you would go back and say you put 100 grand into silver 6 months ago, it could be worth well over $125,000, $130,000 because the dollar is losing its value. So folks, if you want someone that you can trust for buying your precious metals or gold and silver, I would highly recommend Dr. Kirk Elliott. So Dr. Kirk Elliott is a good friend of mine, but he's a strong Christian patriot. He understands what's happening in the world. He's got 2 PhDs, one in theology, one in economics. So it's the perfect blend of understanding, realistically, money in the end times. So if you want to set up a free consultation with Kirk's team, head on over to goldwithseth.com. So again, that's goldwithseth.com or call 720-605-3900. Again, it's goldwithseth.com. You go to the website, you scroll down. There's a simple form that you fill out right there. You put your email, name, contact information, and that sets you up for a free wealth consultation where you can talk to either Kirk or one of his experts to really understand what your options are. Or you can just call 720-605-3900 to take action today.
So you got a plane that flies 500 miles an hour, right? You get you make it go to 700 miles an hour. You get a 200-mile tailwind, 900 miles an hour. Now the flight makes perfect sense. We had back in 2015, 2016, people were saying that the flight didn't exist, right? The flight didn't exist, right? And then Max Egan, who at that time was very anti-flat Earth, he's like, I'm taking the flight. Let's prove it. I'm like, okay. So we did a live stream. He live streamed getting to the airport, going to the airport, live stream onto the plane until the plane took off. And then we lost him. And then we tracked the plane for 14 hours. And then when he landed, he called us from the plane, proving to where he was, getting out of the airplane, the whole thing. And like, okay, the flight does exist, but he took compass readings the whole way. He expected to be going southwest, south and southwest to get to his destination, but he didn't. He had a whole bunch of, he was heading north and then west and then southwest and then south. And we charted it on a flat Earth, right? Here's north, north, north. When he's lined up with the North Pole off his right to his right side, 90 degrees, he was going west just for a second, then going southwest, southwest, south. And he got to his destination. So his compass readings confirmed this was the flight path that he took. Although on the globe, they showed him going all the way down here and around here, which is much smaller. They showed him going, here over to Australia. Where is Australia? Over there. Okay. But it's compass readings. Now, what are you going to believe? Compass readings or stories? Right?
Exactly.
Still with me?
Oh yeah.
Let me show you
a compass.
A couple more flight paths. Yeah. Couple more flight paths. And people are like, well, there's hubs and they got to change airports and pick up other passengers. No, not true. I mean, sometimes there might be true. They'll go a little bit out of the way. Here's one, Rio to Johannesburg, stops in San Pedro, right? On a globe, kind of crazy. Why don't we just cut straight across? This leg looks to be about the same as this leg. Look at it on a flat Earth map, pick up some fuel, continue, right? Makes perfect sense to me. Another one, Abu Dhabi to Auckland stops in Tokyo. Tokyo is direct straight line on a flat Earth map. Direct straight line. Okay. And the reason they stop here is because they can't get fuel in the middle of the ocean. Right? I mean, why didn't they go to Australia, pick up fuel here, and then go straight? I mean, that seems to be much shorter. Right? And then the World Cup. Remember the World Cup recently in Doha? They went to Rome. Now, here's the thing. Private plane, just the passengers. They're not picking up anyone else, not dropping off anyone else. And they wanted to go back to Buenos Aires. They could have gone here, but instead they went to Rome to get more fuel. That doesn't look like it's any closer, right? And then they flew. Look at it on a flat Earth map, Doha, Rome, get some fuel because you can't get fuel here in the middle of the ocean, and then go down. Again, another straight line. Right? Another straight line.
I have a question for you to map out. So I used to travel to Hong Kong a lot. And sometimes when I would fly, I would go from New York to Alaska to Taiwan. And I remember thinking like, okay, well, New York to Alaska, that's a little bit strange, but maybe it makes sense. Right? So can we look at, I mean, I'm not sure if you have the appropriate map to pull up for that, but I'm just curious what that looks like on a regular world map versus this.
So where was the origin?
So
where'd you start from?
New York City was the origin.
New York City, right here.
Okay. And I was going to Taiwan, which
Taiwan's over here.
Yep.
Okay. So ready? New York, Alaska, Taiwan.
Interesting.
Straight line.
Yeah, because here's the thing is, and without even looking at an actual globe, I know that Taiwan is basically around the equator, right? So in terms of where its location on the map. So it's like, well, why would I go from New York all the way that north up to Alaska unless I was going over the top of the earth, perhaps?
Well, it makes sense on the globe to go over the top of the earth to get to Taiwan.
Yeah.
On a globe. Nothing makes sense on a globe. I mean, flying on a globe is just so dumb. It's unbelievable. For example, this is a flight from Germany down to Ecuador, I think, somewhere in South America. And so when you're flying over the globe, those stars on the horizon should be over your head when you get there because you're flying halfway over. You've inverted yourself 90 degrees down. And those stars should be going up like this. This is Google Earth says, oh, this is what a flight would look like. All the stars would be rising as you're diving over, right?
Makes sense.
So I got a star here on the horizon. I got a star here on the horizon. It's in front of me. And as I fly over, it's now over me. Okay. This is reality. The stars are not rising up. Okay. This is reality versus Google Earth. Which one are you going to believe? Google Earth. You know, Google Earth didn't add the curve of the Earth until I think it was 2002 or something like that. Somewhere right around there. They didn't add the curvature. Google Earth was flat. It was flat until they added the curve, right? Reality versus a computer simulation, right?
Well, I mean, Google is, their whole motto is do no evil, right? So why would Google lie to us? I mean, they don't censor. That goes back to one of my early kind of like the premises of my critical thinking toolbox. If Google says that 2 + 2 = 3, 2 + 2 probably doesn't equal 3, right?
Right.
Okay, so what are we looking at here?
So this is what people are used to seeing, like their flight path from LA to Heathrow, right? They're going over here. And so look, you go up, Newfoundland area, and then you touch the tip of Greenland, and then you go down. This is a great circle route. Great circle route. Here it is. We go up, Newfoundland, tip of Greenland, Heathrow. Straight line, touching all of these same land points. They're just bending your flat Earth around a globe and telling you that's where you live, right?
So So flights are something that you can look at flight logs. Like it's very public information.
Yep.
Now, occasionally,
Go ahead.
occasionally planes have to make emergency landings, right? Especially lately, you have people that are just randomly dying or having heart attacks. Probably an increased amount, but we're not going to get into that. What might be causing that? So I've done planes before that have had to have a landing that was different than what was originated. So you would be able to then, I would assume that if you plotted the course from point A to point B and you realize that, oh, there's an emergency landing, that you could pinpoint that and say, oh yeah, that makes sense for them to land there because they're flying emergency. Okay, what's the nearest airport we can get to? We're going to land there. How does that play out?
Yeah, this emergency landings prove flat Earth. This book, 16 emergency landings proving flat Earth. You can find a free PDF of it online, or if you want it as a coffee table book, highly recommend it on lulu.com. And you can also find it on my website, flatearthdave.com, if you forget everything else. So here's a flight from New York to Hawaii. And right about here, they had an emergency and they landed in Seattle. Now, if you take a globe and
still seeing were you showing an image there?
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. I do that. I do that at least once a show. So that's once. So New York, right about here, there was an emergency and they landed in Seattle. Now, this isn't necessarily the flight path, although it should be, because you get a string put on New York and Hawaii and pull it across the globe. That's your Great Circle route. But they want you to believe that your Great Circle route goes up through Seattle and down. Okay. All right. So they had an emergency. They landed 15 minutes later, they landed. This is like 1,500 miles. That's like 3 hours away.
So they didn't land in Southern California.
No, they didn't land in Southern California. But if you look at it on a flat Earth, Seattle's right on their flight route. Okay, that's just one. Look at another one. Okay.
Because there's probably at least half a dozen airports in the southern half of California. They're driving right or flying right over top, right?
Plenty. Another one, London to Islamabad stops in Pakistan. Okay, no, stops in Moscow. I'm sorry. Moscow is way out of the way. All right. But on a flat Earth, Moscow's right on that flight route. Okay. Another coincidence. Let's just call it a coincidence because I'm a coincidence theorist. All right. Here's Dallas to Beijing, stops in Calgary. Calgary, I don't know, that 1,500 miles out of the way. Emergency. Why don't they just stop here? It's right on the flight path again, right? But they're going to want you to believe that the plane is flying this way, okay? But why would it do that? It's flying this way. They're just taking this flight and wrapping it on a globe. You know, that the farther south you go, the harder it is for them to lie. That's why when Max Egan was on the flight, his seat back showed that southern route because too many people would question, you know, why are we going all the way up north? Okay, it makes no sense. All right. You know, and are all the pilots in on it? Pilots don't even know where they are other than what GPS tells them. Guess who runs GPS? NASA. Okay. NASA is in charge of GPS, in charge of all international flight routes. And, you know, the other thing is GPS, the code for GPS is closed source because it's using flat Earth information and wrapping it around a globe. And if they gave us that source, you know, that information, we'd look at it and the gig would be over. But they'll never release that information because it proves the Earth is flat.
Okay. So
right?
and that brings up a good point because I wanted to touch on. Do you want to finish a point with the maps?
Just to Chicago to Doha, like stops at Moscow again. Again, Moscow coincidentally on here. Two more I want to show you. This one is where is it? Here it is. So this one's New York to Auckland, New Zealand, right here, emergency. They went all the way out of the way to Fiji, about the same distance. Why did they go all the way to Fiji? And the answer is because New York, Fiji, New Zealand. It's right online. It's not over here. It's right there. Here's a zoom in. Right on the line. Fiji's right there. Okay. That's why they stopped. This is another couple hours. Okay. The world is a big place. Right. And then the last one, this is my favorite because it's so morbid. You're on a flight, whole family, big, you know, kids, a father, mother, and the mom dies suddenly. 4 hours into the flight, 12-hour flight, was going from Hong Kong all the way over to the UK. They ended up stopping in Germany, but 4 hours is about here. Mother's dead in her seat. Okay. They flew for 8 more hours, right? Could you imagine sitting next to your dead mother for 8 hours? I make this sick joke. Like, could you imagine sitting next to your mother for 8 hours? Okay. But, so sitting, these kids' lives are destroyed. I mean, this is something that I don't think that you could ever recover from. Well, here's the flight route on a flat Earth map. 4 hours into the flight, they're over Russia. What are we doing flying over Russia? Can't let people know that we're over Russia. And 2, what if they landed in Russia and Russia became, please let us help, let us assist. Oh my God, that could spark peace. We don't want that. All right. We don't want that in today's political environment or theater of war. Okay. So this is all you need to unplug from the matrix, and you need to let your ego go. Once you let your ego go and look at the evidence, right? We don't know what's beyond Antarctica. We don't know what's beyond 72 miles high. We don't know when resets happen. We don't know a lot, but we know that we don't know. Okay? Where you want to go next? If you don't have a suggestion, I've got one.
Oh, well, I was going to ask you about the pilots, because that's also one. So I would, I'm thinking, how fast does your average airline fly? Was it like 400-500 miles an hour? Something like that?
500 miles an hour.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if a plane,
550.
if you're traveling 500 miles an hour, then over the course of 1 hour of flying, you've traversed 500 miles. You would have to bring the nose of the plane down, right? Let's just say that if it's 500 miles and before we were at 19,000 for 170, let's say it's 50,000 miles, just kind of 50,000 feet. So if that plane's traveling 500 miles, then the pilot would have to be constantly adjusting their flight path, right? Or would you say that gravity is keeping them level, or kind of gravity is keeping them the same height away from the Earth, and that's correcting? But then I guess the big question I have is, I think of everybody, the pilots would have to know these things, right? The pilots would have to know where they're at. Or is it just something that the pilots are just punching in numbers and they're not looking at an actual map, are they? And like plotting their distance.
Nobody brings a globe into the cockpit. The map that they bring in is the map that I showed you, the Gleason's map. That's the one that's used for navigation. Okay. And they're like, well, it's a projection of the globe. No, the globe is the Gleason. They wrap the Gleason's map around the globe. It's the opposite, but everything's backwards in this world. They're like, oh, the Gleason's map is just a projection of the globe. I don't think so. I think it's the other way around. So you ask pilots, and again, we've asked many pilots, and I'll show you where you can find that information. They're like, it's flat and level. And if you look at the documents from the CIA, from the FAA, from NASA, if you want to believe anything they say, all of their testing of airplanes and flights use a flat, non-rotating plane as a plane, as an Earth, not airplane. A flat, non-rotating plane, it says in all of their documents. That's the flat Earth model. The globe is like, you don't have a model. Why is the FAA using our model for their flights? Okay. And so but what people don't understand is the way a plane knows it's level is it gets a gyro. I remember we had gyros as kids, a 3-axis gyro. You spin that sucker up and that thing holds rigidity in space. So an airplane on the runway spins their gyro up at level. Okay. So when it goes up, if the airplane pitches forward or down, up or down, or left or right, that gyro holds rigidity in space regardless of G-forces or gravity. Okay. So that way they know if they're level. But when you fly, if you take off from here and here's your gyro, you fly halfway around the world. Well, your gyro is now vertical. Okay. It would be, but it's not. It stays level. Now, are gyros doing something magical? Because now on big airplanes, there's a little box that's one company makes for all airlines. And no one at the airport, pilots or anybody, is allowed to open that box. They say this box adjusts for Earth's curvature. No one's allowed to open it. No one's allowed to know how it works, right? You call the company, you can't get anyone on the phone ever. Okay. So there was a flight a couple of years ago where the box was malfunctioning and they were going back and forth. And the control tower said, just go. Don't worry about the box. And they flew halfway around the world without anything to adjust their gyro. No problem. What's in there? And what about gyros on airplanes before that company came into existence, before GPS? When we had planes flying all over the place, right? Gyros hold rigidity in space. So, again, you won't find any of this information, but if you go on my app, Flat Earth Summit and Zodiac Clock app, you can find it at flatearthdave.com. The app is $3, full disclosure, one-time charge. You have it forever. Go read the reviews. Mind-blowing. Everyone loves it. And there's a subscription if you want to be able to message other people. We'll talk about that later if you want. The subscription is $11 a year. You don't need to get it. I'd appreciate it if you got it, but you don't need to get it. Hit the frequently asked questions and you hit are all pilots and scientists in on it. Click that and up will come a list of all sorts of stuff, all sorts of pilot whistleblowers, all sorts of stuff. Google won't let you find any of these videos on your own. And so just go through this and then you'll understand how the deception happens.
Interesting. Okay, that makes sense. So you had, I took us to pilots, but you had a point you wanted to go to next.
Oh, it was, it's about stars and what we see and star rotation. Want to go there?
Sure. Why not?
So, yeah. So, the globe zealots. Now, when I say that, I don't mean there's what we call anti-flat earthers out there. There's these guys that spend 24/7. They're probably paid or at least possessed into pushing the helio-nonsensical system, and they won't talk about the curvature formula. They'll only talk about lights in the sky. Lights in the sky. What's going on with lights in the sky, right? But then there's the other type of people, which are people which, like your former self 2.5 weeks ago, that would be like, the globe, it's stupid, it's dumb, and you have all these preconceived ideas. But then we have a bunch of guys that go around on boardwalks and beaches, and they make YouTube videos like, hey, we're going to ask you 3 very simple questions about the globe, and if you get them right, you win $200. Okay? They've been doing this for years. Nobody's won. Okay? Let me ask you. And you're going to, hopefully you get all 3 right. I would have gotten some of right. How many times does the globe spin in one day? Pretty basic question. Half the people get it wrong.
Wait, okay.
It's too easy.
It was one rotation, right?
One rotation. Very good. You got one before and you win $200. Okay. What is the speed that the Earth orbits the sun? The average speed.
Isn't it like
right?
That the Earth
we're
is
orbiting the sun.
31,000 miles an hour?
And 66,600 miles an hour. Funny, right? Funny number. A lot of 666s in the helio sinister trek. Okay. And then the third question might be how far is the sun from the Earth?
I don't know. Like what?
You can say anything because the number that they tell us, 93 million miles, is also a lie. So it doesn't matter whether you get it right or wrong because it's wrong. But those are like, if you're going to defend the globe, know your model. Okay. So flat earthers, like if someone that thinks flat earth is stupid knew 1/10 about the globe that flat earthers know, they would be flat earthers. Okay. Or at least what I call, because flat earth has been weaponized like conspiracy theory, anti-globers. Right. I don't know what the earth is. Honestly, whatever it is, it's a horizontal plane. And everything is down for everybody in the same direction. Up is up for everybody in the same direction. Right? Left and right, forward and back are all relative to your position. Right? But up is up, down is down. Okay. So the sun is 93 million miles away. Now, you know what a solar eclipse is? You know how a solar eclipse happens? Solar eclipse is when the moon goes in front of the sun. That's what they tell us. Okay. So the moon goes in front of the sun. On a flat earth, this is how I see a solar eclipse working, right? The sun and the moon, they both migrate between the two tropics, as I told you before. This is the moon. This is not the scale or speed, of course, right? This is coming towards summer. The sun is coming in towards, that's June 21st. Now here is December. And when they sync up, where they both hit the same spot, that could be a solar eclipse. I think it's way more complicated than this. But in the heliocentric model, they tell us that the sun is 400 times bigger than the moon, and it's also 400 times farther than the moon. Therefore, they look like they're the same size. So that's called scaling in distance, right? If my head was twice the size of your head, but I was standing twice the distance of you to somebody else, our heads would look the same size. Okay? Silly example, but so that's scaling invariance. So that's what they tell us. Okay, let's use that. So if the sun was a yoga ball, right? Regular yoga ball, about this big, and the earth would be a marble or a BB, right? That's what they tell us. Something about that variation, right? So let's pretend that it's noon. The sun is directly above you, and I move the heliocentric sun 1 mile over your head. So basically, you got that big yoga ball, and you're right underneath it. You look up, the entire sky is the sun, right? I brought it a mile to us. It's 186,000 miles wide, or whatever the number is. You look up, the whole sky. Now I move it away. It gets smaller and smaller and smaller, 93 million miles. And now it's the size of a coin held at arm's length. That got smaller because of distance, perspective. With me? So if I doubled the distance, do you know how much smaller it would get?
Twice as small?
Well, twice. What does twice as small mean? You mean half the size? Half the size. Okay.
Twice as small.
Well, that's a good thought, but there's a thing called the inverse square law, and it basically says every time you double the distance of something, it's 1/4 of the size.
Oh, I see.
Okay. So if I double, so the sun is what they tell us 93 million miles, which is 8 light minutes. Okay, 8 light minutes, right? So at 8 light minutes away, you have the sun. We double it to 16 light minutes. Right, the distance light travels in a minute. This is what they tell us. Now it's a quarter of the size of a dime or a nickel, whatever. Double that, so now it's 4 times 8, 32. It's now a 64th, right? A 64th the size, right? I did it right. It's a quarter, and then a 16th, and then a 64th. So a 16th the size. And then we double it again. So now that's a light hour, 32, we'll call it a light hour. It's a 64th the size of a dime. It's basically the size of a star. Okay. If I double it again, could you see it? Maybe not. What if I made it 24 times farther? So now it's a light day away, 24 times 1 hour, right? A light day away, it's scientifically provable that you cannot see the sun. Okay. So we just, and if you look at it and you understand the angular resolution limits of your eyes, how you can't see something smaller than 0.02 degrees in arc size. So now we look at Polaris. Now everyone in the north can see Polaris with our naked eye. It's pretty bright. They tell us it's 46 times bigger than our sun. So if we made it 46 times farther, right? Our sun at 93 million miles away, 46 times farther, we put Polaris, it would look like we have 2 suns. They'd both be the same size, right? But we just made the sun a light hour away. So if I made a light day away, so if I made Polaris 46 light days away, you couldn't see it. It would be too small. Let's round up to a light year, right? That's ample. And, there's like no one, I don't even think a Glober would argue, right? Well, they probably would, because that's how they do. You couldn't see it at a light year away, a light month away, okay, and like 2 months away. But they tell us it's 433 light years away. And you think you could see that with your naked eye? You're not thinking, because you're not taught to think large numbers and large distances like this. People don't understand. Light is like sound. If you were a mile from me and I say, hey, you couldn't hear me because that sound spreads out, gets thinner and thinner and thinner. Well, that's what light does. it spreads out, it gets thinner and thinner and thinner, right? And when you looking for when light spreads out, gets thinner and thinner, it just can't travel forever, right? It can't travel forever. So ignoring the brightness issue, the size issue kills the galaxy, kills it, right? What is the just so people understand, 433 light years. I haven't done the math on it. The closest star is 4.5 light years. That's 25 trillion miles. Okay. Now you've heard the number of trillion. It's a big number. You think it's a big number?
I mean,
trillion miles. A trillion miles is unfathomable, right? Just to give you an idea of, and you might have heard this on the Flyover Conservative show. How long do you think a trillion seconds is? Did you heard this, right?
Oh yeah, I think it was something. Maybe that's where I got the 31,000. Is it 31,000 years?
31,000 years. Right. So 1 trillion seconds is 31,000 years. You and I get in a rocket ship. We're traveling a mile per second, which no one's ever gone that fast. We're going to the closest star, the closest one. Forget Polaris. It's so far away. It's ridiculous. Okay. And we're traveling for 1 trillion seconds. We've gone 1 trillion miles. We've traveled for 31,000 years, and we have to do that 24 more times to get to the closest star. And you think you can see that with your naked eye, right? You think that light is just going to beam towards you and not spread out and just go away? That's not how light works. Let me show you what happens when you have perfect conditions, clear, cold, no moisture, and viewing the sun setting from an elevated position. I got my drone up, right? And the sun's up here, and if the Earth was spinning, it would go down, 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 and it would just keep on going.
Like
but
the sun would
went
set,
down, down, down,
right?
down. It went down, 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 and then it stopped. And it sat here for 10 minutes. Wait, did the Earth stop spinning? This is super sped up. And I'm waiting, I'm watching. Now, my friends are down at the beach over here. It's dark already. The sun set 10 minutes ago. And I'm watching the sun just fade into the soup of the atmosphere, just like Canada. The light, it went so far away, it took its light with it. Now, the light's still here. You can still see it, right? That's why we have these long twilights and sunsets in the north, right?
So how long is that time lapse for, roughly?
This was when from the beginning it was about, I'd say about 8 minutes. When it stopped going down, it was about 8 minutes. So right here, from here to the end, I think about 8 minutes. Actually, that's a great question. I should measure that. And on my app, if you go to the web button, which is more resources page, scroll to the bottom, I've done this 8 times. There's a whole bunch of videos that show this. I've done it in 4K. I've live streamed it. The Globers say that I CGI'd it. I wish I was this good at CGI. Okay. But, people are like, well, I've watched a million sunsets. You watch them from ground level. You watch them over water. You watch them on warm days. It was below freezing. I had to heat the batteries to make the drone work. Okay. And it was super clear. And I'm zoomed in. If I didn't zoom in, you couldn't even see this because it just became a tiny little dot, right? It became a tiny little dot. People say, the sun would get smaller if the Earth was flat. Well, on certain conditions, the sun does get smaller. This was filmed by a soldier in Afghanistan. The sun again stopped going down, and it's just going away. Why do I have Paul McCartney on here? He goes, because the fool on the hill sees the sun going down, but the eyes in his head see the world spinning round. You think they knew? Well, I don't know. They didn't write their own song, so maybe they didn't know, and they were just singing blindly.
Yeah, so that's an interesting video right there with the sun, and that's also because, I guess in the flat Earth model, as the sun is just kind of rotating above the plane, eventually it gets kind of like the train tracks. The train tracks eventually get far enough away that they just converge into one singular point, and then they kind of disappear. Whereas the sun, like
right.
if the Earth is rotating, it's like you'd see the sun visibly set, like we think it does, right? but it
Yeah.
looks like what's
If I-
happening is that, like, to me, what I'm seeing in that is that the sun is a fixed height from the earth and it's just moving further away.
Absolutely. It's just moving further away. You have to believe, right, that this cameraman is falling over backwards faster than the speed of sound. And that's what's making the sun look like it's getting farther away. Okay. Because if you're watching the sunset, you believe that you're on a ball falling over backwards, which makes the sun get lower and lower, right? You're on a ball, the sun's up here, you're here. And as you go back, the sun gets lower to your horizon because you're falling over backwards. Okay. Isn't that ridiculous? Yeah, I'll use that R word, ridiculous. But when I say ridiculous, I really mean the other word. Okay.
Yeah, very, very interesting. Very interesting. So I've got a whole, God, I still have a lot to go over with you. I'm glad that we booked a lot of time here.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So I want to get into a few kind of broader topics, but then I want to get into some of the more, like, what does this mean from a big picture? Like, what's outside of all of this, right? And so we'll get into that. But one question I have is really looking at the ancient cultures, okay? Because something that I've come to understand, of course, we have advancements that are being made, right? Like, they didn't have air conditioning 200 years ago that I know of, right? That's one of the things of,
That
that
of.
like maybe they did, right? They probably did, right? But I know that
if you look at all the Tatari and the old world buildings, they had all these castles and stuff, but there was also no bathrooms and no heating. And like, what's going on there? Like there's other technologies, but go ahead.
Exactly. Yeah. So I don't want to take away from progress. And there are things that we've done as a species, as humans, to progress, and our science has done incredible things. But there's something else that I've also come to understand, and this has come through, researching a lot of philosophy and looking into ancient cultures and how they lived, and in a lot of ways being obsessed with ancient culture. And so what I've found though is that there's so much that they got right that we're now getting wrong. And I don't really think of it as like, okay, well, why is that? It's like, okay, are humans just getting dumber, right? No. What I think explains that is that at some point over the last 100 years, and probably much longer, but over time that these powerful individuals and their families and their bloodlines gained more and more control over this realm of Earth, right? This plane of Earth, this area, this firmament, right? So that over time they gained more control of it, and so as a way of controlling us further and keeping us locked in that mental prison where they can control us, what they've done is they've taken all of that ancient knowledge and wisdom and they've either hidden it or they've ridiculed it, right? So, I remember studying, I think it was the Ica stones, and these Ica stones, it was supposedly these stones that were tens of thousands of years old, carved into these stones, like Aztec looking people, were these people that were looking through telescopes at stars in the sky, right? Like it was tens of thousands of years ago, right? Potentially, right? So they're telling us that Galileo did this a couple hundred years ago. So, I'm making a kind of a more important point here as I go, but I've come to understand that so much of what we now look at, like we look back at the past, say 500 years ago and say they were so stupid, they were so uneducated, we've moved so much further. But even looking at farming techniques, you look at the farming 500 years ago, you look at how much they knew about the human body, about the universe. They knew so much more than we did in so many ways. And it's almost like what we are now is we think we're so smart, but what we are is we've mastered learning the false reality that the planetary masters have put in place on this earth, right? So someone who has is like a triple PhD in physics and this, they think that they're like almost a god on earth because their knowledge is so great, but they've learned what the controllers want them to learn, right?
They've memorized and regurgitated the nonsense in the Rockefeller-funded textbooks. If you ever wonder, schools are low, military is funded, schools are underfunded. So they don't have very much money. Then the Rockefellers offer textbooks at a fraction of the cost to manufacture them. That pushes out anybody that wants to make a real textbook. Like, hey, you know what? Hey, you and I, we're going to make an awesome textbook, and it's going to cost us, $30 and to get it to the school, right? Well, the Rockefellers go, we'll give you the same textbook for $5. Okay. And then the school can afford that. And then it constantly changes every year, new updates, right? And so you don't get the real information. And then if you're really good at memorizing and regurgitating that information, you get a degree and you could become the teacher of the next generation. So are teachers lying? No, they're teaching the same garbage that they were taught. And and they were taught it again and again and again. The first worksheet a kid brings home from school is the planetary motions. The sun goes around, the earth goes around the sun, the moon goes around the earth. I remember that sheet. They're still giving it to kids today. Okay. That's the first thing they bring home from school. One of the first things.
Exactly. And so,
right?
I believe personally, one of the peak cultures that we've had on this earth was the Tang Dynasty in China. Like if you look into their science, their understanding of life in the universe, of healing the body, it was incredible, in some of the old technology, et cetera. And so I see you have your graphic, which I'm really interested in seeing this, because that's the question that I have is, collectively, do we see that all the ancient cultures independently believed in a flat earth model, or was only a couple of them, or like what did the ancient humans believe our earth to be?
All of the ancient cultures all talked about a flat, non-movable plane. In our round of this history, we have all of these characters out there that supposedly believe, discovered, you got Copernicus and you got Galileo. I think these are all made up stories, right? And some of them are provably made up, right? So, we have Pythagoras and Copernicus and Galileo. And I think that, they're all there with their Freemason poses. I think this is all made up, right? They may or may not have been real people. I don't know. It wasn't there. Okay. So when we look at, one of the things is what's his name? Eratosthenes, right? He supposedly proved the earth was a globe by measuring his sticks and shadows. You know the story, right?
Yes. But once you rehash that story, just so that people, in case they don't know.
So when you have what we call an infinitely far sun, that means the sun is so far away that the light rays are parallel. Like I get my flashlight here and I'll put it on, right? So if I bring it to you, if I bring it close, the rays are splaying out. But if I go really, really far away, I don't know, that's a really good example. The angles of the rays are so far away that they're essentially parallel. So the sticks and shadows experiment was done assuming there was parallel rays. I don't know why he assumed there were parallel rays, since no one's ever seen parallel rays, right? And then the globers will go, well, this is just refraction. It's coming in straight, then it hits our atmosphere and it refracts. Doesn't matter. As Eratosthenes is on Earth, he's looking at corpuscular rays, not parallel rays, right? So here is and his experiment was he was in wherever he was, I forget. And he noticed that you could see the sun at the bottom of a well. That means the sun is directly above you. That's logical thinking, right? So he puts up a stick and there's no shadow. And he has his buddy 500 miles away who counted his paces. That's how he knew he was 500 miles away. And somehow they were able to communicate. I don't know how they did that. And at the same time, his buddy's stick had a shadow. And they're like, well, the only way you can do that could happen is if the earth was a globe. Well, you got an infinitely far sun with parallel rays that for some reason, I don't know how, he thought they were parallel. And the other thing was, back then, the story was that the Greeks thought the earth was geocentric. So the earth is at the center and the sun is orbiting the earth. So now you have a giant infinitely far sun orbiting a pebble earth. That makes no sense. So they want their cake and eat it too, right? But on a flat earth, we have a local sun, Eratosthenes, and we have his buddy over here. you can measure the length of the shadow, do the exact same math they did over here, and you can figure out the sphericity of this flat surface. Okay. You could do it yourself. Get out 2 beer bottles and pull the light over one. There's no shadow. There's a shadow. Do the math and you can figure out the sphericity of your floor. Okay. Math isn't reality when you're using bad information. Okay. So Aristophanes, I don't know if he ever existed. And the other thing is, 2,000 years ago, Aristophanes figured out the shape of the earth. Carl Sagan taught us that, in Cosmos, that, the Aristophanes thing, this was like huge. And they showed this in school and science classes, that only on a curved earth can you have one have a shadow and the other one not. Like on a flat earth, now he's got an infinitely far sun because it's far enough where the rays are coming in. He says only when you bend it. Well, that's a false model because he's got an infinitely far sun. When we look at our sun, it's right there, right? So you can do this yourself, just as I showed you. And provably, it doesn't prove anything. If anything, it proves the earth is flat.
I see. Whereas if he was holding a flashlight, say 8 feet away from that, or 3 feet away from that, then it would kind of disprove, or not necessarily disprove, but it would also prove that it could also be flat.
Right.
Right.
Right. I got a light over this one. It's kind of just over here. Longer shadows. And Carl says that can only be because this surface is spherical. Well, it's not. This is a table. This is just a flat surface. Right?
Okay.
So we have an observably local sun, right? It's an observably local sun. We were talking about the sun and the distance before. I just want to touch on sunsets for a second. Is that all right?
Sure. Yeah.
So here's an experiment I did. I call it my flat earth kitchen, right? I got the countertops right here. I've got this line right here, which is the path of the sun. So I'm walking along the line and I'm viewing this from an elevated position. I'm at the height of the sun, if you will. So at the height of the sun, you can see that this is a perfectly level straight line. Now this here, it could be mountains. It could be a cloud deck. It could be anything, but we're above it and we don't go below it. Now I have a terrestrial camera on the counter at the other end. And if we look at the same thing from the other side, from the ground, it looks like this line is going down, doesn't it? It looks like it's like at a 45-degree angle. And look, we're going below this horizon, which appears to be at my eye level. Okay, because it's in the distance. Zoom in, look at this. This is a level line, and this is above this line. This is where the sun goes. Comparing it to a real sunset, here I am. Here's the sun going away. It's going away. And it goes behind this atmospheric deck of opacity. That's where the sun goes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that also reminds me of that video of the sun that the guy, and I think the soldier in Afghanistan filmed that you showed earlier.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It all depends on the weather conditions. This was a little almost sun fade out that we filmed from the ground. And it's just before it gets blocked out by the thick atmosphere, it kind of just takes its light with it. It's not just disappearing. It's just moving away.
And so the idea with that, so okay, let's talk a little bit quickly about day and night, right? Because it's from the globe perspective, that's an easy one. It's like, okay, well, if the globe is spinning, like I've got a studio light right here, and if the globe is rotating, okay, then you would see, like, when you're on the opposite side of the sun, obviously it's dark, right? And so I think some people would look at the flat earth map and be like, well, isn't the whole thing just sun all the time, right? But is the idea with the flat earth that the sun is smaller and closer, and so that as it kind of rotates and follows its trajectory, circling the North Pole, that it's not like it's so bright it lights up the entire map. There's a radius of light coming off of that sun based upon its brightness and its proximity to the Earth. So that's why when the Earth is, or the sun's over top, go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. So picture yourself in a gymnasium, Okay, then all the lights are out, and you get just a light bulb, and you hold it like a foot over the floor. It's going to light up a big area of that floor, but from the other side of the gym, it's going to be dark over there, right? Everything's still dark, right? And now, but I can still see it. It's above there. The problem is you put all that thick atmosphere in there. The atmosphere all comes together, but due to perspective, it becomes opaque, and everything just goes behind that. You have to remember that we have our terrestrial layer, have our celestial lights, then we have our atmospheric layer, and over distance, it all just becomes opaque at the horizontal eye zone. Anything above it can go beyond it, and once it goes beyond that opaque part, you can't zoom it back in. However, anything in between that layer, if you're down on the bottom, if you can zoom in, you can open it up and you can see it again. So viewing boats and buildings and mountains is different than viewing celestial objects. Just like you got a building, a 10-story building, you're right in front of it. It's straight up there. And so now an airplane flies over your head and flies beyond that building. It disappears behind that building, right? Because you're looking up, it goes beyond. I can't see through the building. Now move yourself a mile away from that building. Okay. A mile away from that building, the top of that building is going to look like it's eye level. It's going to look like it's eye level for you. And when as that airplane goes away, it's just going to go away and it's going to set behind it, just like that. It's going to set behind it. And that's your horizon, your horizontal eye zone. So let's talk about the light. So here's our Gleason map. Now, if I had a light far away from this thing, it's going to light up the whole thing. But if I held a light really close, it's only going to light up a portion of it. Now, check this out. Last year in July, I think it was July 8th, there was a day where the big news story was 99% of the Earth's population would be in some form of daylight at the same time. Remember that? Did you remember hearing that, or maybe not?
No.
It was a big thing. It was on all the news shows. 99% of the world population. It's almost 99% of the Earth because, but it's the vast majority. So this is daylight. This is twilight here. So it's still light out. So all of this was all in daylight. The only part that wasn't having some sort of daylight was the very tip of South America and Australia and New Zealand. Okay. So let's take a look at this. So this part of the world. So when you have a single source light lighting up a sphere, no matter how you twist it or spin it, only exactly half of the sphere will be lit, right? The side facing the light will have light, and the other exact half would be in the dark, no matter what.
Yeah, because light doesn't bend around the Earth, right?
Right. So it's gonna, you're gonna, wherever that light is, you're gonna have your day and night equator half splitting the Earth in half. Fact. Well, we lit up this globe from one side, and all of this was in darkness. Okay, because the light was on the other side. We have the light on here just so you can see. Right, I have a video showing this, and you can do it yourself. Okay, so all of this was in dark. Right, so here we have the Gleason's map, and I'm just holding a light, and here we got the tip of South America is in the dark. Right, I set it to where California was just in dusk, just like they showed there. And it goes, this is that whole area of the map that I was showing you that should be in darkness if the Earth was a globe. And the only thing missing is Australia and New Zealand, right? So here it is. This is all of the area that they showed us. And just Australia and New Zealand are in the dark. So again, this map showing what we observe in reality. And then the story of the globe, which is only half of the Earth, no matter what time of year, day of the year, time, anywhere, would have to be in darkness and half in lightness. Well, I'm sorry. Observational reality does not work.
I mean, it's hard. Yeah. It's hard to.
It's hard to argue these things.
Well, that's the funny thing with this is that, like on the globe, it's like you mentioned with the whole globe approach, it's like there's so much about it that almost requires faith It's like, or that like there's these weird things, like things are bending around the visuals are bending around the earth, or like in a lot of ways, this does make much more sense. It just doesn't make sense according to what we've been taught. But again, like, let's take a step back and like right now, or I can imagine say in 20 years, our society will most likely, especially with the youth coming up, they'll be, so let's to say the millennials right now are sitting around the kitchen table talking to their children, right? Or the Gen Z. And they're saying, would you believe that 50 years ago, or say 80 years ago in school, they taught that humans were created by a mythical guy named God in the sky, right? They're like, when clearly we've evolved from monkeys. But could you believe those people were they're so superstitious, they were so dumb that they thought that man was created by some mythical deity in the sky. And that, I mean, like our honestly, if we don't preserve religion and faith, like with the rate that the globalists are attacking us and attacking religions and pushing atheism, pushing evolution, you could say that in 100 years, 99% of the planet will think that we evolved from apes. And so I think it's just important for us to remind ourselves of this, because a long time ago, most of these ancient cultures believed that this was the way. But now, according to the, like the main scientists, and that's another one of those kind of critical thinking toolbox tools, right? It's if the very mainstream scientists, like is it Tyson DeGrasse or Neil Tyson? What's I always forget his name.
Neil deGrasse Tyson, the failed actor.
There you go. Or Bill Nye, or these people, Dave,
the lying guy with the bow tie,
the scientist. If these are the people, similar to Fauci, right? Like if these are the people that they're propping up, and they're the ones saying this is what you must believe, like to me, that's another indicator of like maybe there's something else going on here. So anyway, you've got some cool animations though. Can we dig into that?
So this is just showing, it's hard to see the date. This is the moon right there in the darkness, and the sun is always in the center of the light. And as it moves in and out, the shape of the darkness changes. Okay. What do I mean by that? As it gets out farther, it seems to wrap around, kind of like there's a dome outside of us. Let me see if I got another one. So this is day and night versus, from time and date, and moving throughout the year. So this is June, and this is December. See in December how the light wraps around, right? The light wraps around, almost making it, the sun's over here, and there's some light over here in Antarctica. Maybe that explains why it's 24 hours of light in Antarctica, right? So I got a glass dome here, and I'm just moving this light a little bit. And look, the light wraps around. Kind of very similar.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
I don't believe that the sun and the moon that we see are the actual sun and the moon. I believe that they are a projection or a reflection of the actual source, which is above or within the firmament, within the sky boundary. And I believe that all the stars are fixed in that boundary. The only thing that's not fixed in that boundary are the wandering stars. If you don't know what those are, they call them planets now. Okay. They're wandering stars, and they make amazing patterns, and they ignore gravity. There's so much to it. Where do you want to go from here?
Okay. Well, gosh, I've still got a lot to go over with you. All right, folks, I've got a quick message for you. I have one simple question. If today you could no longer go purchase more food for your family, with the food stores that you have in your home, how long would you be able to feed your family? Would it be a week, 3 weeks, a month, 2 months, a year? This is a really important question, folks, that we have to be very realistic about, because the elites are proactively trying to put us into a state of food crisis and a state of famine. I'm sure you've seen all of the different food processing plants and farms that are blowing up. You've got cattle dying by the tens of thousands. they're proactively trying to collapse our food system because they know if they can control our food, they can control us. And so one of the best ways to be outside of their control is to be able to have our own stores of food and to be able to produce our own food. So there's really two things I would recommend. One is having heirloom seeds that you can grow your own food with, making sure that they're non-GMO heirloom seeds, that way you can harvest your seeds this year, use them next year. You can use these seeds for generations. Literally, that's how it will work. The other thing, though, is this high quality storable food. This is food that's sitting somewhere. It's hidden in your basement, buried in your backyard, whatever it is. So that way, if there is a crisis, if there is an emergency, you might have 3 months set aside to get through that time period. And so for this, I would highly recommend a company called Heaven's Harvest. This is an amazing Christian-owned patriot company. And what they're doing is they're making high quality storable food. Again, a lot of the food companies, they say these food buckets, they're all about maximizing calories per dollar. They're filling the buckets with a bunch of filler and junk like sweet beverages, etc. But Heaven's Harvest, they focus on very high quality food that will last up to 25 years on the shelf. They also sell heirloom seeds. So you can buy all of your seed, you can buy all of your storable food. And look, folks, personally, I would recommend having at least 3 months per person in your household, if not 6 months or even a year. Again, depends on your budget, but I would definitely make sure you have some seeds because those seeds could be worth their weight in gold, if not more in the future. So to go ahead and do this right now, go open up a new tab and go to heavensharvest.com. And if you use the promo code Seth, that's SETH, promo code Seth, you'll save 15% off of your entire order. So again, folks, the time is running out and you'd rather be 3 months or 1 year early than 1 day late. Again, heavensharvest.com and use promo code Seth to save 15% today. That's one thing I also wanted to talk about is Polaris and the North Star, because if I'm not mistaken, the location of the North Star as seen from Earth hasn't changed in thousands of years, if not longer. It's always been there. Yet, if that star is however many thousands of light years away and we're spinning and spiraling through space, it's obviously like the stars aren't they're not tied to Earth's orbit, or they're not tied to the rotation of the Earth. Like the stars way out there aren't also spinning with Earth as Earth is spinning around the sun, right? So you'd think that like the stars, based upon like the stars would constantly be changing locations as our Earth is moving through space, yet the North Star has always been in the exact same spot, which is another thing for me that says it's hard to see how that makes sense on a rotating globe that's just kind of flying through space. It's easy to imagine some sort of round, say, disk type thing with a star at the center, above the middle that just. So anyway, yeah. So what do you think?
They want you to believe that we see these perfect star trails go around Polaris. Because of the spin of the Earth, which is the slowest motion, right? We've got to remember we're orbiting and we're chasing the sun, and the entire thing, our entire solar system is moving sideways through the galaxy. It's absolute insanity. So here we got all the stars up here circling over a flat Earth. Makes sense when we look at star trails. Then we have our corkscrewing, flying, never to return to the same place, traveling 4.5 billion miles every year. This is what star trails would look like. It would be insanity. But, they're just like, oh, everything's so far away. There is no parallax, right? All of the distance, to those stars is, we say that we're on one side of the sun, 93 million miles away. 6 months later, we're 93 on the other. So that's 186 million miles, right? You'd think we'd see some parallax, but they're like, oh, the stars are so far away that there's no parallax. And even the 4.4 billion miles every year that we travel farther and farther and farther from the previous years, there's no parallax because everything's so far away that there's no parallax. That's ridiculous. Okay.
Because
that is so stupidly ridiculous. Go ahead.
Because aren't there like all kinds of ancient structures like the pyramids or Stonehenge or Aztec, build Mayan temples that were built in a way that they are they're kind of perfectly mapped to the solar system. They're mapped to the stars in the sky. And I mean, how old is Stonehenge, right? So like that, they haven't changed, right?
You're trapped. They built Stonehenge in the 1950s.
Okay, there we go.
In the 1950s, okay? There was some stones there. They were all removed, and they built this thing in the 1950s, and they tell a story, okay?
So this is actual footage.
Actual footage.
Of them building
and if
Stonehenge.
You go to Stonehenge, of them building Stonehenge. Okay?
Wow.
You walked right into that one.
Yeah.
So are you familiar with the Georgia? So but getting back to Polaris for a second, there's a shaft in the pyramid, Great Pyramid of Giza, that points to Polaris.
Now, was the pyramid built 50 years ago too? With
no. This is different. No, absolutely not. But they say, I think the pyramid was built not as far long ago as they say, but it's a whole different timeline. But it points to it now. They're like, well, it used to point towards a Thuban, which was the North Star 2,000 years ago. But because of precession, it now points to Polaris. So during that 2,000 years, it pointed towards nothing. But just during our lifetime, it points to Polaris. And it always pointed to Polaris my entire life. As far as anyone can remember, it's always pointed towards Polaris, right? But all the other time, it was pointing nowhere, right? So you know about the Georgia Guidestones, right?
Yes.
Georgia Guidestones in Georgia, here in the United States. There's a hole right here, and if you look through it, what do we see? We see Polaris, right? Do a time lapse, and all the stars go around. It never moves. Now, again, we're traveling 4.5 billion miles a year. Or back and forth to the sun, zigzagging. Polaris never moves. Any day, any time. Polaris was always in that hole.
And that's so even like that image right there is something that makes me think. It's again, if our Earth was spinning around like this, it's also spinning around a sun, which is also flying through space. Like, how would you get that perfect time lapse with Polaris never moving? And my guess is that you could, if you did a 30-year time lapse, it'd look exactly like that. Obviously, because of how cameras work, it'd be like all white or whatever. But basically, that like to me, what that looks like is there's some sort of kind of structure of stars.
The government-run Stellarium program. We used to be able to go back 10,000 years and Polaris never moved. And then we pointed it out to them on Stellarium and say, well, with parallax, it should be moving. And they went and they fixed Stellarium so you can only go back 500 years. Okay. Or whatever the number of years was. They changed it. They moved the goalpost again. So, okay. Stars are so far away that there's no parallax. But the tilting of the Earth, they tell us that it moves a degree every 72 years. Okay. So a half a degree, we can measure the number of feet in the sky. It would be way out of this hole, a half a degree. It was built in 1981. Okay. Over 40 years it was up. So now Polaris should not be in that hole. And what happened last year? A terrorist blew up the Georgia Guidestones. Out of nowhere. Stupidest story ever. Okay. And then literally later that day, before the investigation, bulldozers there and bulldozed the entire thing.
It's like Tower 7.
They blew up one stone. Yeah. Tower 7 never existed. Come on. You know that. Okay. Look into Tower 6. That's the one. The what? Tower 6? What are you talking about? Don't you mean 7? Tower 6. That's the friggin' smoking gun. Okay.
We could go on for a long time.
Yeah, just check my channel. Go, what about Tower 6, the smoke. Forget Building 7, Tower 6, the smoking gun. Right? That's a short video.
Okay. So that's okay. Right. So that's an interesting thing. Now here's something that is mind blowing to me. And I know you've got a little graphic of this. Can you bring up is it the Gleason's map? Is that right? Is that the name of it?
Yeah.
Can you show that really quick?
Okay.
So is this, what's the history of this particular map? Is this a guy named Gleason?
Alexander Gleason, I believe. Yeah.
And
This was in every encyclopedia, every library, every school until the 1950s when they removed it and then made everybody forget about it. They literally Mandela'd it right out of existence.
So that was that.
You know about the Mandela effect, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know about the Mandela effect.
Yes.
So you know the movie Idiocracy?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Right. It used to be a comedy, but now it's a documentary. Is that a Mandela?
Yeah, exactly. So
we're living in Idiocracy.
So this is okay. So this is the map that now what they show us is they show us that map of the Earth that's kind of like shaped like a hot dog. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And all the things are out of proportion. You know what I mean? Like Canada's way the wrong size and all that. So we have this map. Now, can you pull up the UN logo for me? Because this is something that I found to be extremely curious. That this is the map. This is the kind of the textbook flat Earth map.
Yep.
And we pull up
the
UN logo. Yeah, sorry, cut you off guard there, but you're pretty quick with your OBS.
I am.
So,
why don't I have that right here? Let me see. Where did it go?
well, I mean, I can bring it up here on my end.
I'll show you. I'll show you another one. So this is basically the Gleason's map, right? Do you know what this place is? Do you know what this is?
No.
This is TSA immigration area in the Dallas airport. They're guarding Antarctica. Weird, right?
Weird.
Why would they have that? Why would they have that?
So this is the UN.
There it is. Yeah.
So can you pull back up your map and I'll toggle between this two? So the
here. I got it. Let me. I found out what you're looking for.
Perfect.
Stop sharing for a second. So here's the United Nations, right? Yep. Here we are. Right. What's out here? It's interesting. So then we have the World Meteorological Organization, same map. These are the people that run the world, right? Then we have the International Civil Aviation Organization, flat Earth map again, right? Then we have our flat Earth map, right? And they're like, okay, so we have this one is good, this one's good, this one's good, and this one's nonsense.
Yeah, see, that's strange to me. That is very strange to me. I mean, it's kind of like, even for people that are, diehard, like you flat Earth guys are completely nuts. Like, how do you explain that? Then why are all these global governmental organizations that control so much of what we see? And what is that right there?
The United Nations in Africa just built.
Crazy.
Okay. So here's how they get away with a lot of this. It's because we live in this very strange place. It's more spiritual than it is physical, if you ask me. Our thoughts create our reality. So they need to control our thoughts. If you understand where you are, where you're standing, your position in this world, you become a much more powerful being. But if you're living in fear and you're like, oh my God, an asteroid's going to take us out any minute. Oh my God, Putin's going to start a nuclear war. That's not real. Asteroids aren't real. We're running out of food. That's ridiculous. You can take a 50-year-old seed, stick in the ground. Water will fall from the sky and food will grow out of the ground. Okay. We're overpopulated. Every family could have a half an acre in Australia and half of Australia would be empty. Okay. We're running out of fossil fuels, the dinosaurs, please, fossil fuels, right? All of this fear, then you give away your God-given natural rights, natural law, the only true law, and you give it away and let these energy-sucking, soul-seeking entities steal away your life. And I think that we're here in this game, and the goal is to maintain control of our soul and help others do the same, right? But they're trying to steal our soul with the soul lure system. They're literally trying to steal our souls with the soul lure system.
Exactly. Well, I mean, and that's kind of how I look at it too. It's almost like we're like this is interesting because it almost makes me think of an arena, right? Like that we've been placed into this arena. You can't go outside of it, and you're forced to go in there. You're put into this delusion, and in this realm of delusion, it's kind of like, what is the game? Well, the game is is like, choose your path. Do you choose a path of morality and a path of higher purpose? Or, I mean, look, if you want to, you can go gamble your money and spend all your money on cocaine and strippers and hookers. Like, you can do that. You know what I mean? Like, but I think that like this is just the realm. It's like, so I think that it kind of makes sense that it's almost like, and this is kind of getting into a broader, deeper discussion, but like that God allowed the earth to be like this, and God allowed this delusion here because we're being tested. Our souls are being tested.
I think so. I think that we're here. We're being tested. I think we chose to come here with amnesia, the easiest way to describe it. So, because, first thing, I relate it to a video game. I'm not saying that we live in a video game, but I'm not saying that we don't. Okay. Is if you bought a shoot 'em up video game and nobody shot at you, you'd be pretty bored. Okay. You'd be pretty bored. And in this world, if you knew all the answers, I don't think it would be as soul growing, right? The problem is the lie vision programming and the indoctrination system has taken over your conscious mind. Your soul is always trying to talk to your conscious mind, but we're too caught up. People can't meditate for 60 seconds, right? Most people can't slow their minds down for 60 seconds, right? Because if you slow your mind down, you're actually going to hear what your soul's saying. And when you can't hear it for a long period, okay? So depression, and then depression leads to drug addiction and all sorts of other stuff, right? I've seen the Flat Earth Awakening take people out of drug addiction, take people out of depression. If they're on medication or not, they get off the medication. And the world is so much more interesting. I used to love, I come home from work and I'm watching a movie. Now, favorite thing was to just watch a movie, lay there in front of the television and watch a stupid movie. Okay. And that's just programming us more, when in fact, the movie's outside, the movie's here. I mean, this place is so bizarre, especially since 2020. Okay. It's a comedy horror show. One of my favorite combination, right? Comedy of horror.
It's like the Truman
you
Show
go out into
merged
nature
with 1984.
It's merged with everything, right? With the old cartoons. You've looked into like the orphan trains, right? You know a little bit about that, right? In the early 1900s, like millions of kids showed up everywhere there with no recollection of having parents. Okay. What is going on there? Okay. And they're like, we're here to repopulate the earth. Is, like, what? Right? And some of them are reported to not have belly buttons. Again, that's another rabbit hole that's so deep. Okay. I don't even want to speculate, but this world is not what they tell us. It is fascinating. I am never bored. Every flat earther, right, is never bored. You wake up at 3:00 in the morning with insomnia. You're like, wow, I get 6 hours before I have to talk to anybody. And you can go do some research. Okay. So the world is most fascinating. Like, people are like, the world is falling apart. It's horrible right now. I think the world is amazing right now. It's truly amazing. There's some horrible people. There's some things going on. But if you look at something you hate, go that way. Go that way. Do that thing to make that better. Okay. Don't focus on the negative. Right. And, people like, with all the stuff going on in the world, losing jobs and the jibby jab and all of this stuff. Why are you talking about flat earth? Because if you don't know where you're standing, you don't know your true power, right? Then you'll never win. This war will never be over until we understand that we're in a war, until we understand that they have us in a prison, get out of the prison, until we understand that their fiat money is worthless and we can make our own money. Okay. Until we understand that everyone to your left and to your right and in front of you and behind you is your friend. Okay. Until we understand that we're all in this together to expand the mind of the creator, then we're never going to win. The people that are running this world understand how it works. They use it against us. They use spells on us, right? It's all spelling, right? Right? It's all wizardry is that's the word that we use to describe how they literally run this place.
Oh yeah, that goes deep. I'm not sure if you've ever looked into Todd, the guy from the music industry. I forget his first name. Anyway, he's kind of a whistleblower talking about how some like the major record labels, they have an entire floors of these labels devoted to witchcraft, and when they're releasing CDs, they're doing these rituals, and they're putting all their spells into the songs to, anyway, that's a deep rabbit hole. But so I want to talk about, let's say I got a lot of stuff still, which is fun. Okay. Something I could never understand before were, why are these elites going to Antarctica? Right, whether it's John Kerry, there were rumors of Obama going there, rumors of Klaus Schwab going there, and I think, why? And at one point, I found some theories that there was an ancient civilization on the on Antarctica, and that there were technology there, and that they're going there, and the Nazi bases were there, et cetera. There's a lot of different theories about that, right? But the question is, why are important people, let's talk about the Antarctic Treaty. Like, why are these countries, what are they doing there? But also, if this, there is this flat earth kind of idea that it's kind of like an ice wall, what's on the other side, right? Because like right now I'm reading The Iron Republic, which is a really interesting book about that. But I want to get into that because that's where my mind goes. It's like, so if this is like a mind prison, and we're inside of this, convinced that we just evolved from, bacteria and slime, and that we're just kind of flying through space randomly. Yet on the other perspective, that we're in this consciously designed world that God created, which, I mean, arguably God could have created a round earth as well. I mean, it doesn't disprove that idea.
But the physics of the world that we live in do not support that. Yes. It does not work. Yeah. God could make magic. You have to take incredible leaps. And people that like the Earth is a globe, and aliens are coming to visit us, and they're coming from stars farther than the closest star. Okay, so they're traveling at ridiculous speeds. Oh no, they bend and fold space, and they get here through portals. I mean, you just got to go through ridiculous nonsense to support that model. So why are the elite? And they do. A lot of people have tracked them. David Avocado Wolf, I don't know if you follow him. Yeah. He was able to track like a bunch of world leaders. They go to South Pole Station, which is just on the shoreline, and then they disappear for 3 days. Then they show back up at South Pole Station, alleged South Pole Station, and then they fly back home. Where do they go? Who are they talking to? I have some theories, right? So here are these mountains, and they're all named Dome A, Dome B, Dome C, Dome. The globe is, well, that's what they call mountains. They're domes, right? But if you remember, Antarctica is not this continent. You have to invert this. So all of these are on the outer edge beyond our shoreline, right? So let me back up a little bit. Let's say we'll go to Kansas, and we have a lake. It's 100 miles around. It's a big lake. You can't see across it. It's because atmospheric occlusion. And at the center of the lake, you have a magnetic mountain, giant magnet, and you're on the lake with your compass. And you could circumnavigate east and west. We went over that, right? So you go around, stop at all the different islands. We'll call them continents, right? And then one day you say, you know what? I want to go explore south. So that's any direction away from the center of the lake. And then all of a sudden you get to the edge of the lake, and you don't fall off into space. You step up onto Kansas, okay? So now you're on Kansas, and now you start walking, right? You're a mile away from this beach. From the lake. You can't even see the lake anymore. Okay, let's say you go 10 miles, 20 miles. Now, this is a smaller scale of the world. Okay. And then all of a sudden, you come to another lake, and it has its own light above it, right? Because you can't see the light above your lake. It's too far away. It's like a street light way, a couple miles away. You can't see it. Okay. And you go out, and there's other lands out there. So what is going on with these other lands? So this was just real side note. This was I don't know if you follow any crop circles. Lots of them are fake. Lots of them are unexplainable. Here's one, shows Antarctica, and it has this opening here. Like, what is out here? What's over here in the field? Right? Not saying this could be done by man. It could be done by whatever. And I'm not saying aliens are coming. I'm saying this is simply sticking it in our faces, or a message, or a clue, or something. Okay. So I want to show you this first. So here's one way we can look at the Earth, right? So here we are. This is, South America, US, right? Got everything here. Here's that opening that we saw called the Summer's Gate. And this is Antarctica. You got to remember, this is, a couple thousand miles wide, right? And then you go out here, there's more ocean. Iron Republic, you're reading it, where they went through an opening, they got lost at sea, and then they found land, right? How far in the book are you? I don't want to ruin it for you.
Oh, just towards the first, like kind of the beginning. Like they're just first spotting the light on the horizon after they went through this kind of strange opening in Antarctica.
Yeah. So they found a city. I'm going to ruin the whole book for you. All right. They found a city. It was Silent City. And then they waited until morning, and then a boat came out, and they're like, hey, we're from America. Where are we? And they're like, oh, you're at the Iron Republic. They're like, where's that? And the guy goes, well, it's on the other side of Antarctica, about the same distance as the United States is. All right. So maybe they're over here. Right. Boom. Right. They went through this opening, found this land. Right. They're on the other side. So the long story short, guy goes there, whole different society. They had flat screens and floating cars and electric stuff. And this was in the 1800s. They're telling this book was written in it's actually a series of articles. And he ended up getting married, stayed there for like 10 years, and his wife died. He got distraught, got his boat back, went back, landed in Florida, and told the story. Okay. Now, whether it's true or not, I think it rings true to me. It doesn't matter. They're talking about more land beyond Antarctica in the 1800s. Okay. So, however, our history, story of the world got all convoluted, that's something to be discovered. But so here is our pond, but then we'll take a look at what I call, excuse me, pond world, right? Here's our pond, right? And here are other ponds occupying a piece of the plane. A piece of the plane. What do you call a piece of a plane? A planet? A planet? A little piece of the plane? I don't know. Word magic. Right?
So you got this. What's this based on?
So this is the next book you have to get. And if you go to the book section of my app, it's called The Navigator Who Crossed the Ice Wall. All right. It's amazing. It's going to blow your mind. All right. The Navigator Who Crossed the Ice Wall. Right. So let me show you how they hide the world from us. So here's the map that you were talking about before that they show us. I take the United States, a little bit of South America, Mexico, Costa Rica. We get rid of the rest of the map. We wrap it around a globe, and we teach kids this is all that there is. There's no other land. And you're like, well, there can't be because this is our globe, right? So now let's look at that puddle world, right? So we have puddle world, and we zoom in to where we live, right at the center here. You'll see our world right here. So the controllers know all about this, right? Here we are. They cut out the rest. They wrap it around a sphere. And they say, this is all that there is. And you're not allowed to explore south. This is south. You're not allowed to explore here. This is all that there is. So when the controllers come down here, where are they going? They're not going to the South Pole. They're going somewhere else, right? This is the prison for your mind, right? This is the heliocentric matrix. It is to limit your thought ability. It is to stop you from manifesting your true world, your true life, right? So I'm going to show you something which I basically talk about in every show. I don't know if you saw it when I did it with the other guys, or maybe I didn't do it. This is a map that was discovered in, where is it? A Buddhist temple, some Buddhist monks. And it shows like 30 some odd other continents outside of here. Now, the only place I know that you can go to, there's two places to go to Antarctica, from Australia and from Santiago. Maybe there isn't an ice wall all the way around. Maybe sometimes it's frozen, maybe sometimes it's not. But if they took you from here to the center of this continent and told you were at Antarctica, how would you know? Right? This continent is over twice the size of Mexico, United States, and Canada combined, maybe 3 times the size. So you pull up right here. They bring you to Deception Island, the little island off of here, right next to Rothschild Island. And they show you some penguins and some ice, and they kick you out. That's all you get to know. Maybe it is frozen out here with some openings. Maybe there are other suns out here. I don't know. I just want the right to go explore. But here's something that happened. Some guys were looking at cargo tracking sites. So every cargo ship in the world can be tracked on these sites. You click on any ship, and it gives you all the information, where they're going, cargo, captain's name, size. We found a ship here, 300 plus miles inside the shoreline of Antarctica. How does a ship get in there? And recently, I'm waiting to get the images. Somebody found one 800 miles inside. 800 miles, okay? Inside the shoreline. Like, how did it get there? How does a ship, an active ship, get there? So we click on it. The only thing it tells us is the size of the ship, which is 580 meters long, which is a massive, massive ship, 80 meters wide, and that it's registered on the nation of Kiribati. Have you ever heard of Kiribati?
No.
Where's Kiribati? It's out here in the middle of nowhere. I had to put a pin on it. You can't even see it. There it is. Okay. I zoom in on Kiribati, and it's literally a sandbar. Okay. It's a sandbar, right? It's a little bigger than a sandbar, but it's the nation of Kiribati, and it's in a very weird place. I'll get into that in a second. And people only live over here. And the United States and Canada, and China, and several other countries, I say that Kiribati is the most important trade route that we have. Why does a cargo ship need to stop in Kiribati? What to get what? What are they getting? Sand? Okay. Right? Why does a ship that big have to go? Who are they trading with? There's very few people here. Okay. Why is this an important trade route? So, just another quick note, the story of Captain Cook. He tried to circumnavigate Antarctica. Antarctica is like 13,000 miles around. It took him 3.5 years. He went over 68,000 miles. Kind of sounds like he's going around the edge of the Gleason's map rather than a little continent at the bottom, right? Well, on Kiribati, must be a super fan. They have the Captain Cook Hotel. Okay, you got the Captain Cook Hotel. You got a giant ship that has no business being registered to Kiribati. You have governments of the world that say it's an important trade route, and you have ships in impossible places in Antarctica. Okay. That's 4 strikes. I was done at 1. Okay. So what's going on? Getting back to the controllers, the people down that, presidents that go down there. What if it is an important trade route? Here's Kiribati, and they have a trade route out here to these other civilizations. Maybe they're trading computer chips or weapons or tuna fish or children. Okay. I don't know. We want the right to go explore. But you've never heard of Kiribati. So how would you ever know? There could be dozens of other trade routes out here. Right. Remember, was it Eisenhower supposedly made like a deal with extraterrestrials, for trading, abductions for technology. You remember, I forget the name of that thing. Well, that makes no sense in heliocentric space because a space vacuum next to a pressurized Earth, scientifically impossible, distances impossible, or extraterrestrials from the outer space. I could see that happening. I would say not only is it possible, it's probably highly likely, right? What if all of this is Earth and they've just sectioned us to here? Okay. What if there's more beyond there?
And so I'm just curious,
we want to know. Go ahead.
Because my curious mind goes to these things. I'm thinking, okay, what if, let's say, you and I, we pulled together all of our money and we bought some military drone, right? That had the ability, or something. We bought some sort of, or say we went in together and bought an airplane that could travel for, thousands of miles, and it had the fuel too and all that kind of stuff, right? Hypothetically.
It won't let you.
Well, yes. What would happen?
There's a video. there's a video where they tried to see what happens if you break the Antarctic Treaty, and you're literally intercepted by fighter pilots. All right.
Oh, okay.
You're
so there's okay. There's the answer.
And so, the globalists will go, oh, how do they, if it's 68,000 miles around, how do they guard all of that? Right. I'm going to show you how they do it in a second. But on a globe, you have lines from the North Pole to the South Pole, and there's 24 of them equally spaced out. And those are your time zones. As we spin through, the sun travels through all the time zones. Okay. They'd all be straight. Why is this one zigzagging? Okay. Why does this one have a ridiculous, crazy zigzag? Let's take another one. It has this crazy zigzag. Okay. Right. What is going on here? But when we look at it, here's a close up of it. This is a time zone. Wait, the Earth is spinning. It's a globe. Why is this spanning 2 or 3 time zones? But they're saying it's one time zone. Guess what island is right here in the most suspicious spot?
Kiribati.
Kiribati. Okay. Strike 5. Strike 5. Okay. And the other thing is, that nuclear bombs don't exist, right?
I didn't know that.
What about Hiroshima and Nagasaki? All I'm going to say is Crow 777 Radio, episode 053 and 400. Go and listen to that, and then you'll know that nuclear bombs don't exist. It's just a fear tactic. So anytime you hear the news, oh my God, this is going to start a nuclear war. As soon as someone says nuclear war, giggle. Every cell in your body should giggle rather than have unease or dis-ease or stress. Giggle, because nuclear bombs don't exist. Look, that's all the whole nother topic. And it's provable, and it's not even a theory. Okay. So what is going on here? That's it. The other thing was they were doing nuclear testing here, bombs. They supposedly blew like 47 nuclear bombs off. Does that sound like they're trying to keep us away from Kiribati? They don't want people like, I want to go to Kiribati, right? And some of the articles, one of the articles, a military guy said when the bomb went off, he put his hands in front of his face and he could see his bones through his hands, like Bugs Bunny in the Roadrunner. Okay. Literally, that's what it says. And I'm like, people are just eating this up, and then they show the bomb blowing up in the background and people walking across the runway. Like they're not even paying attention to the bomb blowing up to the right. I mean, it's so stupid. It's ridiculous.
So could you and I fly to Kiribati if we want to go check it out?
I think so. But here's the thing. We recently found a Reddit thread where somebody was saying that they were a military contract for undisclosed government that was in Kiribati building an underground base for undisclosed government. Okay. And that's all he said he could say. Now, that could just be a guy on Reddit just being an idiot. Or it could be true. I don't know. But the thing is, if we go there, what are they going to do? What are we going to see? Because I was in Mexico for this last winter, and the condo I was staying in was literally 100 feet from the port, right, where the ships come in. And there is a 20-foot high wall with barbed wire on the top that went all the way around this multi-acred area. I have no idea what's going on in there, right? I have no idea. Like, maybe you can go there and fly a drone over, but I would assume, with drones today, they have no-fly zones where the drone won't fly. So you'd have to hack your drone. You'd have to go there. You'd have to fly it over. And then they'd probably, execute you for doing that or something.
Yeah. It is like, that's the one strange thing is how all these governments came together magically and said, we're going to agree that nobody can go to the Antarctic. That's strange.
Well, this one will get you, right? So, in the paradigm that we live in, where Russia bad guy, China bad, where everyone's fighting with everybody, fighting over resources, but no one can agree on anything. There's 2 things that all of the governments in the world agree on. You can't go to Antarctica or the North Pole. That's one. And you got to get the thing. You got to be a human pincushion. Okay. They all agree on those 2 things. Do you think they're working together? You think it's all just an illusion? You think they call it the theater of war? Okay. Go watch Wag the Dog. Go watch that movie again. It holds up really well.
So
Wag the Dog with, about the how they fight wars.
I've actually never seen Wag the Dog.
Oh my God, write that down right now.
I just did.
I think that's the full name. It's with it's all-star cast. Just go watch it.
Okay.
It'll blow your mind.
Okay.
It'll blow your mind. It used to be fiction. Now it's a documentary.
So I'm gonna open a can of worms now because I feel like just
Oh boy.
okay, which is NASA and the moon and so this is a topic that I think is really worth talking about. Now I like actually up until I watched the interview with you on Flyover. I didn't really think much about the moon. Like I knew that my kind of belief was that why hadn't they gone back to the moon? Right. I thought, well, they probably have, they're just not telling us about it. And it's like, they've got all this advanced stuff, like above majestic type stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like
that's what I used to think.
That's what I thought. Like, oh, the Corey Good stuff who's now been kind of like under oath said, I actually made it all up. Right. But I kind of had some thoughts like that. But I also knew that there's Stanley Kubrick and that the idea is that he did it and he was involved with these other films that seemed to be like exposing a lot. He ends up dead. So there were all these just different questions. And I look at NASA and I know that NASA was, if I remember correctly, founded by like a Nazi Satanist or,
It's founded by a Scientologist, Ron Hubbard, right? Walt Disney, a cartoon animator. Right, we got Werner von Braun, an ex-Nazi, like one of the big Nazi guys. Right, Jack Parsons, an occultist, and Aleister Crowley, probably the most wicked man on the earth. These are the founders of NASA.
Those are literally right. I can look it up, and those are the founders of NASA.
Yeah, and Werner von Braun and Walt Disney were best friends.
So
right, and who on Walt Disney as a kid, we had the Sunday Disney, and they'd have astronauts on and rockets, and it was the greatest thing ever. The indoctrination is so strong. I'm surprised they ever broke out of it.
That alone, that is like, even the person that doesn't believe any conspiracy should look at that and be like, there's something really strange about this.
How about this? This one's gonna melt your mind. Werner von Braun in 1957 wrote a book called Project Mars. Right here with this rocket and everything. It's about a group of people that go to Mars. Okay. This is SpaceX rocket that's going to go to Mars. They say. Elon Musk said, I think I want to make it pointier. Okay. Maybe he's just trolling us. Right. But guess what? In the book from 1957, guess what the guy's name who's led the people to Mars?
Elon.
Begins with an E, ends with an N. Elon. Okay. Is that predictive programming? Is that spell casting, or is that just a coincidence? Okay.
It's crazy.
No kidding. Right. And then, now we have Space Force, right? And Star Trek. I mean, what the Starfleet Command? They're just rubbing it in our faces, right? And when you look at all the rocket launches, why do they have the Bermuda Triangle, right? No one's allowed in there. No one goes in there. All the rockets ditch into the Bermuda Triangle. And if somebody happens to get in there and see it, their ship accidentally sinks. And everyone's like, well, you're in the Bermuda Triangle. The methane bubbles came and you sank down. And, it's all a bunch of nonsense, right? And all you need to do to convince people is high fives. Right? Show them some animation, high fives in the control room, and everyone thinks it's the greatest thing on earth. Okay? Everyone thinks it's the greatest thing on earth. Right? NASA is in Hebrew is to deceive. That's the definition. Right? Why do they have a snake's tongue as their logo?
Interesting.
Don't tell me that's not a snake's tongue. Yeah. I mean, there are a bunch of occultists. And it is insane. And Werner von Braun, his gravestone said Psalms 19:1, the heavens declare the glory of God and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Why does a NASA rocket scientist that's running NASA on his gravestone talk about page 1 of the Bible, the firmament? I mean, that's not page 1. Psalms 19:1. Page 1 is God separated the waters and created the firmament. But what is that? Is that is that revelation of method where they always have to tell us what they're doing? Is that a whistleblower? Is that somebody just going, let's watch what we can do to these dumb sheeple? We can tell them and they won't even know, right? They can get away with anything. So moon landing. This is whoops, that's not what I want to show you. So this is I think it's from Capricorn 1, filming or whatever. So you got the moon landing, you got all these lights here. Just remember these lights for a second, okay? Remember these lights. Where am I? Okay. So this is a clip from the moon. Now look, sun's over here, his shadow's going that way. And so we pan to the right, pan to the right, pan to the right. Now remember, the sun is over there. Okay. Pan to the right. Well, now his shadow is kind of like the sun's now in front of the camera, right? The sun was over there. Pan to the right, pan to the right, pan to the right. And now how did the sun get over there?
Yeah, that doesn't.
The shadow's going the wrong way.
That doesn't make any sense.
Okay, so now watch this. I zoom in on the lights on his visor, right? Now look at these lights. There's 2 lights there. Boom. Do you see all those lights? Look. Watch again. Since he comes around. Come on. So there's 2, 1, 2, reflecting in his visor.
Okay, yeah, there's square lights. I think I saw 4 lights in the picture before.
There they go. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah.
Right. Now some people are saying, well, 2 of them are our eye patches. No, they're not. These are reflections, right? What are the reflections of? Some set up like this.
Interesting.
Okay. I don't know. Right. And if you think about it, spacesuits, why don't they explode in space? Right? You ever see go Google Stretch Armstrong or a soda can in a vacuum chamber? Kaboom! Suck the air out, they explode. But then we have astronauts in space, wearing silly stuff like this, right? You would explode. Well, no, it's got special mylar that doesn't, baloney. Right? You see what happens when they suck the air out of a metal train tanker? It just collapses on itself.
Oh, it's right? Like as if it was at the bottom of the sea. But now, what about all of the pictures of the Earth as a globe? I mean, look, my Apple TV shows the ridiculous. Watch those things. It's amazing. Yeah, I want to see what you're looking at there. But anyway, so
they don't click. Yeah,
go ahead.
Go ahead. No. Go ahead. Finish.
Oh, well, so that was just the question is that, we grew up seeing all these pictures of the Earth as this round ball. So are all of those a lie or a hoax, as your t-shirt says?
Well, here's the one that they claim is a real one, right? And you got the Earth here, but when we crank up levels, seems to be a square around it.
Yeah,
right?
And I know clearly Photoshop, what that means, you drop it in there, you don't match your blacks. You know what I mean? So it looks black to the eye, but
they didn't match their blacks. All right. We're going to come back to NASA, but we'll go over to photos of Earth, right? Now remember, in 2017, they showed us a picture of the Earth going, pollution's really bad. It's really, look how bright the Earth used to be in 1978. And in 2017, pollution, and this is, everyone is like, wow, this is horrible. What's the problem with this picture?
The clouds match.
All of the clouds are the same. They match. Okay. No such thing as climate change because the weather doesn't even change. Okay. So again, NASA just needs to do this just once, and it's game over. Okay. Just once. All right. So let's, here's a picture supposedly from the space shuttle, right? Here's Lake Tahoe, right? How big is Lake Tahoe, right? Look how much of the Earth it's taking up. That's like thousands of miles.
That's true.
Right? Looking at the curve, it's just so stupid, right? This is, the blue marble that they always show us, right? But when you compare that, that's not the one I want to show you. So here's 9 images of Earth from NASA. Which one do you like? right? This is the blue marble that was on everyone's iPhone, okay, which has been completely debunked, right? If you compare the 2012 and 2013 images, look at the United States and look at the United States, okay? And people say, well, it depends on the angle, and it's an illusion and it's nonsense, right? So here's a picture from the space station, and we look at this area, but it's this little circle on Earth. That's all that this entire area is. It's this little spot. But they want you to believe that this is the Earth. It's just that little circle right there. Okay. Again, only one of these is needed for you to understand that they're lying. Again, space station. Wow, look at the Earth. And you can tell it's a space station because you can see a little bit of they always have something sticking in the corner of the frame to let you know they're in space. Well, that's just this area here. Okay. Of this fake picture, Okay. Which one is it? Fake and faker. We keep going here. So here's one that we can we take the 2012 picture and we say, okay, we can measure across Mexico and across Baja, and we could actually drive across, confirm it. It's 934 miles, give or take. Well, NASA tells us the diameter, straight line through the Earth of the Earth is 7,917 miles. So now we have our scale. One of these is 934. Put them here. You should be able to fit 8.5 of these in between these two lines. 8.5 goes right off the page. Okay. This is a painting. This is a painting, right? Let me show you a couple more. Here's the same one. Same picture. This is the same picture. Yeah. Same picture, right? Well, we take a whole map of all of the Earth and we say, okay, this is everything we're seeing. All of this land has to be on the other side of this ball. When you go, I can't figure it out, it's because it's ridiculous. Okay. Here's another one. Ready? Here's Africa. Got the river up here, right? Here it is. All of this has to be on the other side of the globe, right? Again, doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Let me ask you a question. You think you could paint that picture so you couldn't tell the difference? You think you could paint it perfectly?
Well, I mean, I went to art school and studied a lot of the old masters that could do photorealistic painting. Yeah.
Well, this is a photorealistic painting. This is a photorealistic painting. And so is this. But this, I don't even want to call this photorealistic. This is a cartoon. It's a painting. Admitted so by Rob Simon, a visual artist for NASA that said he made it in Photoshop and he used Command X a lot. Okay. And this is a painting. So people go, oh, how did they do that? It was before Photoshop. First, I think Photoshop was here in the 1700s. Okay. That's just me. Right. Right. So, they're not telling us what we have, and there's nothing new under the sun. It's just the same thing all the time. Right. And then they show us, this is what like the Science Channel will show you. This is Earth. Right. Clearly, that's not Earth. Okay. Clearly. Right. And then they show us this as real. Right. Ridiculous. Totally, absolutely ridiculous.
So basically, they've never shown us a real picture of Earth. All the pictures of Earth. Can't.
Right. Yeah. Here's what color is Australia? These are 4 pictures from space agencies. They can't even get it straight. Right. Right. And this is the blue marble that was on everyone's iPhone. Right. When we zoom into this area right here, what is this tool called?
Oh, it's a clone stamp.
Same cloud. The clone stamp. Okay. They're lazy or revelation of the method. They're always telling us what's going on. Okay. So, it's the more you look, you start realizing that it's absolute insanity. But the thing is, people have a hard time believing stuff that their whole life is based on. Yeah. Right? Is your mom alive? Is your mom alive?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. She never loved you.
Yeah. Or I was adopted.
Oh, you're down. Whatever. I'm just saying, you tell some people will refuse to look at the evidence because the emotional pain is too strong. Right?
Yeah.
She probably did love you. Yeah, she probably did. So if you can't see through this, I can't help you. Right? I can't help you. And the thing is, those of you listening to me now that have never heard about this, Seth, you came around super fast on this. You saw this, you're like, I need to have Dave on. I need to have this discussion. I need to look further. Do not believe a word that I'm saying. Go verify this stuff yourself. The good thing is, a lot of people have done the research for you. Okay. It's all been done. And luckily, it's all hosted online. If you go on my app, if you go to the web button, and there's a button called Flat Earth Experiments right here. Meticulously detailed observations, beyond what I showed you with Canada, way beyond. All right. It's all done for you there. We've done mirror flashes, right? People are like, well, a laser is going up over and you're seeing the point coming over the curve. Nonsense. We take a mirror on the beach, on the sand, and we're reflecting the sun at somebody far away where there should be over 60 feet of curvature. So that means there's a 6-story building between you. Like if I'm flashing a mirror at you and there's a 6-story building in between us, would you see that mirror flash?
No.
The answer is no. But we can see it. Okay. So the Earth is 1,000 times bigger than they're telling us, or it's flat. It's flat.
So tell us
it's flat.
more about your app. I have it. I downloaded it. Tell us about the app.
Did you set up your referral link?
No, I didn't.
I want you to do it right now. So on the app, you have your app handy. Open up.
I don't. Actually,
you know what? You can do it now, or
I'll do it afterwards. Right. Yeah, I'll do it before we publish this.
So you open the friend finder, right? And the friend finder. What's the friend finder? The friend finder shows you all of the other app users that are near you that have decided to register for the friend finder, right? And it's all anonymous. A non-connected email. These are all the people that are near me, and I can message them. I can send out group messages. We sent out one to 50 kilometers, said we're having a meetup. 75 people showed up. It was an amazing time. I've never met a blue dot I don't like. Awake, aware, unpin-cushioned people, 99% of them, okay? And people that see the reality of our world. Most amazing conversations ever. But right here, so the app is $3, right? One-time charge. But if you want to message people basically the messaging and the communicating with other people, you have to pay a subscription. It's $11 a year. I think that's pretty affordable. But if you don't want to do that, you can use the referral link. You click this and you'll have a random number here, but you can edit it and you can change it. So I want you to think of one that's no more than 7 characters. Man?
Let's do man.
Why don't I just say man?
M-A-N.
Man. Okay. M-A-N. So anybody that downloads the app, the first thing that pops up, it says, do you have a referral code? Type in man and then click OK. And that way, Seth will know that it's because of his show that you're on your path to freedom of unlocking your mind. And then if you get 11 or more, the subscription's for free. You can trade in your 11 points for the subscription. I made it, for people that are like, oh, I'm on my mom's account, or I don't, whatever. I don't have a credit card attached or whatever. I made it simple, super simple, right? But if I look, I'm going to just switch to the world view real quick. That way you can, it'll populate more. This is the UK. People say, is flat Earth really a thing? You tell me, Seth. Look at the UK.
Wow.
Okay. Look at the UK. Let's go to America here. Look at the East Coast. It's ridiculous. Okay. And everywhere. And as a matter of fact, Australia, it's getting quite the population down there. And we even have a guy in Antarctica right here at Casey's. Okay. Check that out. We got a guy in Antarctica.
Have you messaged him before?
I did. We were messaging back and forth. He goes, well, I spoofed my location. And I'm like, oh, yeah? Spoof yourself to the North Pole. And then he disappeared. He's like, nope, not going to do it. But he's still here. And there's another guy out here, right where they stop showing you stuff. Like, what's going on out here? Okay. And I messaged that guy, and his username was "It's cold." That's his username. Okay. what kind of psyop is that? Right. So the app. So here's my challenge for people. If you think that I'm crazy, even with all the stuff I showed you, if your cognitive dissonance is kicking in and they're like, there's no way, you're in a cult, okay? But I'm going to help you get out of it, right? Every day there's a featured video right here, okay? Watch that video each day while you're having your breakfast or dinner or whatever. It's short ones during the week, longer ones on the weekend for 2 weeks. At the end of that 2 weeks, if you can come up with one globe proof, send it to me and you win 3 Bitcoins. What's that, like $75,000 today? Somewhere around there, right? 3 Bitcoins for one globe proof. Hey, that's a pretty good deal, right? But before you do, you have to hit the question mark. That brings you to the frequently asked questions, right? And your answer is probably in there. But if it's not, hit me up. Hit me up. Say, hey, how about this? And then I'll explain to you how that doesn't prove the Earth is a globe. But if it does, you win, right? Also, if you hit the books section, there's all sorts of great books, biblical books, proof books, children's books. These are amazing by Flat Earth Man. Amazing stuff. 16 emergency landings. This is the book, The Navigator Who Crossed the Ice Wall, right? Then we have The Iron Republic, which you're reading. Great book. All sorts of stuff if you're a book person. And then there's other Flat Earth related merchandise. These are people that are selling Flat Earth stuff, like my t-shirts. Go to my t-shirt shop, right? Just, people that are Flat Earthers are like, I want to get someone a Flat Earth gift. Well, this is one of the places to do it. All right. And then we have the homeschooling section. These are better than college. Some of them are free. This is Crow 777 Radio, $8 a month. Send your kid there. Tell them to listen to 5 episodes a week, 1 each day, 5 days a week. And at the end of a month, let alone a semester, let alone a year, that kid's going to be a more useful person in this world than any college education would. Okay. That's $8 a month. All right. Here's the thing. Pay the $8, download the last 400 episodes and then quit. All right. And then now you have 400 episodes that you've downloaded all of them. Right. But the problem is you're going to love it so much. There's 2 new episodes every week. You're going to be like, I want to hear the new ones. So check it out. And again, I'm not affiliated with any of this stuff. I want people learning the truth. I push the app because the app is the way around Google censorship. The app is the quickest way to teach people. If you hit the images, people are like, oh, we went to the moon. I'm like, oh, you went to the moon in this, right? In this thing, right? You point out how it's made from paper mache and duct tape and, not even duct tape, Scotch tape. Look at this thing. If they sheetrocked your basement like this, would you demand a refund? Yeah. Okay. Right. And then there's all sorts of stuff in here. Down on the bottom, some of the greatest memes ever. So when you're explaining Flat Earth to somebody, all the flight routes, which I was showing you, all that stuff is here. And, this is how you wake up your friends and family. This is how you help yourself learn more. There's tons and tons and tons of stuff in here. If you click the weather map and we click to 10 HPA, that's like 40,000 feet. This shows you the winds. These pink winds are like 200 plus miles an hour going around. So maybe some of these flight routes are taking advantage of these winds, right? Interesting how on a flat Earth, the winds go in nice, beautiful concentric circles versus, the crazy trade winds that they tell us, with the big sine wave.
You're right. That's a good point.
Right. Yeah. There's so many good points. And like literally we've been on for, 3 hours?
Yeah. 3 hours.
2, 3, 4. Wow. 3 hours. We barely scratched the surface. Okay. The web button, right? The web button, I call that the more resources page. Amazing stuff. Like if you Google Flat Earth and you see like a debunking video, like you said, hey, Dave, I saw your debate with Professor Dave. Just click debunking the debunkers and watch it from there, like a logical analysis of what it is. And then it'll help you, it'll help you escape the mind trap that they give you there. Emergency landings. I think this is just the PDF of the book. all sorts of lost history. If you don't know about our lost history, if you click that one, bring food and water. Okay. Bring food and water because you're not coming out for a long time. All sorts of stuff. You got the curve calculator, which I used before. Flat Earth Man, his music is and videos are good for kids and better for adults. Amazing stuff. So that's the app. Everything can be found at flatearthdave.com. Check it out. Hey, and if I'm crazy, not only will I give you the 3 Bitcoins, I'll give you your $3 back also. Okay. For the app. Right. And if you don't have a smartphone, and it's only on smartphones, by the way, Android and Apple, and it works on iPads and tablets. But if you don't, on my website, scroll down, there's the crash course. There's a list of documentaries. I challenge you to get through 3 of them. 3 of them. Scroll down. Yeah. If you just click the top, that's the app. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Scrolling down, these are all my social medias on there. Very easy. And we have our True Earth Summits. We have Level With Me. Great video. Just came out, levelwithmefilm.com. Scroll down and there's watch face that you can put on your watch. Flat Earth coffee just for fun, because nothing better than leaving some Flat Earth coffee in the break room. Right there. If you click that bar, if you go back a little bit, click that bar that's right over me. That'll take you to the crash course. And those videos will, there's no way you can get through 3 of them and not be a globe denier. So there you go.
And that is flatearthdave.com, right?
That's it. There's a whole bunch of websites that'll get you there, but the easiest way, flatearthdave.com. Can't forget that. Yeah.
Well, it's crazy because I think this is the longest interview I've ever done, yet it feels shorter than most hour-long interviews that I do, because it's fun and interesting and exciting. And this was, I feel like that we only scratched the surface somehow, which again, like
we all scratch the surface, but let me tell you what's going to happen. The trolls are going to, my trolls, I have dedicated trolls, are going to show up in your comment section, and they're going to leave all these comments. They're going to reply to everybody. But here's the thing. They never give a globe proof. Their channels are empty channels, right? And they only have insults and non sequiturs and straw man arguments. They will never offer a globe proof, but they're gonna be there. They'll get there before I get there. I do so many interviews. Sometimes the host doesn't tell me that they posted it, but my trolls find it first. Okay. I'm thinking of hiring one of them. Like, hey, can you just send me links to any shows that you find me on? Right? Because they're there first. You know what's funny? On the Flat Earth Podcast Facebook page, I have trolls there, but they're all flagged as top fans. Right? When you're on a page a lot, you become a top fan. So all my trolls are top fans. It's so funny.
Oh, it's good. It's good.
So funny. All right,
Dave, it was a lot of fun. There's certainly a lot to think about. You know, that's where this leaves me. Is it's kind of I've cracked open the system of beliefs that I had, and so now it's the time to kind of dig through, sort through, research, etc.
I have one more thing. People are like, why? You know, we touched on it. I just want to say one final thing. Why the lie? Right? Your thoughts create your reality. Look at yourself. Everything you have in your life is your fault. The good stuff and the bad stuff. It's the way that you think that creates your reality. The biggest conspiracy in this world is the universe is conspiring to deliver all the things that you're thinking about, good or bad, right? And people don't understand that that's how this world works. So they control your mind. They limit your mind. They put it in a prison. They tell you that we're running out of everything and everything's just so much to be afraid of and to give away your God-given rights. But when you unplug yourself from the heliocentric matrix, you plant yourself on this creation at the center of creation, then you understand that there is more and nobody has any right to tell you to do anything, right? People don't realize that, that nobody has power over you than in your imagination. If you believe somebody has power over you, then they do, right? If you agree, in contract to something that you're not supposed to agree to, that's on you, right? So the reason that they do this lie, the reason that they fake the moon landings, we discovered Antarctica, more land bigger than the United States, filled with resources. Oh, nobody can go there. We're going to the moon where no one can go. Okay. Don't look over there. Look up there, but you can't go. And we're going to show you some really bad footage. Because they want you to believe that you can live in outer space and that you're insignificant, that you're a speck flying through a meaningless, godless, or at best distant God universe. When the truth is, we're at the center of creation. We're truly powerful beings, filled with compassion and love, right? But they don't want that. They want to hide the creator. They want to hide that humans are good. The reason people have a hard time dealing with flat Earth is because they have to come to the logical conclusion that there's evil in this world beyond what they've ever imagined before. And this lie is so huge that a lot of people just can't see it. They're unwilling to see it. It's like walking into a room. It's a horrible example. I always use it. Walk in a room, there's dead people all over the place, shot up and everything. And you're like, I can't think of a motive, so I don't think it happened. No, look at the evidence. Look at the evidence. The evidence for flat Earth is undeniable, but the globe people will say, oh, there's no evidence for flat Earth. There's only evidence for the globe. Opposite is true if you look, or you can just believe that, hold on to your ball and, and let your life drift through space. So there you go.
Well, there you go. Well, there's some good words of wisdom to end by. So Dave, thanks again. I'm sure we'll do more of these. It's just been, like I said, it's been fun, and there's a lot to think about, a lot to read and watch. So thank you for what you're doing. I appreciate you making the time for me today.
Thanks so much. And anybody listening, that you can do what Seth did. He saw me, he reached out to me and said, come on my show. If you have a show, go to flatearthdave.com, click book Dave, send me your information. We'll have a little dialogue and let's do a show. If you think flat Earth is dumb, please have me on. Please, let's have that conversation. And you guys can make fun of me the whole time.
Great. Well, Dave, take care, man. Have a good one, and we'll be in touch. Thank you again.
All right. Thanks, man. See ya.